Hey guys, tonight we begin a journey into ancient Egypt, where beauty wasn't just painful, it was poisonous. What if I told you that Egyptians painted their faces daily with cosmetics containing lead levels 10,000 times higher than what we consider safe, slowly killing themselves one application at a time? Before we dive into the alabaster jars and lined eyes of ancient Egypt, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button. It really helps me continue creating these bedtime history stories for you. I am genuinely curious. Where are you right now? Are you tucked in bed with the lights off, relaxing on the couch after a long day? Or maybe doing your own skincare routine as the sun sets outside your window? Wherever you are, dim those lights, get comfortable, and let's travel back 4,000 years to discover what Egyptians endured in the name of beauty. Think about your morning routine for a moment. You probably spend maybe 15 minutes on your face, some moisturizer, perhaps a bit of makeup, sunscreen if you are diligent. The products you use have been tested, regulated, stamped with FDA approval. You trust that what you are putting on your skin won't kill you. Now imagine a world where your beauty routine takes 3 hours every single day, uses ingredients we now know are lethally toxic, and where the social pressure to maintain this routine is so intense that refusing it could destroy your reputation, your marriage prospects, even your life. That was ancient Egypt. According to Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities, whose excavations have uncovered countless cosmetic artifacts, ancient Egyptians didn't just appreciate beauty, they were absolutely obsessed with it in ways that would make modern beauty influencers look casual. Both men and women, from pharaohs to farmers, spent hours each day on elaborate beauty rituals that were simultaneously acts of hygiene, religious devotion, status display, and in many cases, slow-motion suicide. Tonight, I am going to take you inside the perfume, scented chambers and temple workshops where these beauty products were made. You'll meet the people who used them, princesses who painted their faces with poison, priests who guarded secret cosmetic formulas, slaves who died mining the precious ingredients. You'll discover why ancient Egyptians wore makeup that could kill them, perfumes that cost more than houses, and wigs that took months to create. We'll explore the shocking ingredients in their cosmetics, the brutal beauty standards that drove people to extremes, and the modern parallels that might make you think twice about what is in your own bathroom cabinet. This isn't just a story about vanity. According to Professor Joan Fletcher from the University of York, whose research on Egyptian beauty practices has transformed our understanding of ancient culture, beauty in Egypt was deeply intertwined with religion, medicine, social status, and survival. The line between cosmetics and curses, between beauty and death, was thinner than you might imagine. So settle in, because we're about to spend the night in a world where looking good could quite literally kill you. Let's start with the most iconic image of ancient Egyptian beauty. Those dramatically lined eyes you see in every hieroglyph and painted coffin. That distinctive look, with thick black lines extending from the inner corners of the eyes and sweeping out toward the temples, wasn't just fashion. According to chemical analysis conducted by Dr. Philippe Walter at the Louvre Museum, published in the journal Analytical Chemistry, the black coal eyeliner that defined Egyptian beauty was made from galena, lead sulfide, and not just a little lead. We're talking about lead concentrations of up to 200,000 parts per million. To put that in perspective, modern safety standards consider 20 ppm dangerous for children. Meet Nefertari, a noble woman living in Thebes around 1250 BCE. You are in your mid-20s, married to a wealthy grain merchant, and every single morning you sit before your copper mirror while your handmaid applies your makeup. According to archaeological evidence analysed by Dr. Lise Manish, author of Sacred Luxuries, Fragrance, Aromatherapy and Cosmetics in Ancient Egypt, your cosmetic collection would be the envy of any modern beauty influencer. You own dozens of small vessels, alabaster jars, faience pots, carved stone containers, each holding a different preparation. Your handmade begins with your eyes because in ancient Egypt, eye makeup isn't optional. According to Dr. Manish's research, both men and women across all social classes wore elaborate eye makeup daily. Your servant grinds the galena, a silvery black mineral, on a cosmetic palette, mixing it with animal fat and a bit of water to create a paste. Then, using a small wooden or metal applicator, she carefully lines your eyes, extending the lines in the classic Egyptian style. Think about what is happening as she applies this makeup. According to modern toxicological studies conducted by Dr. Christian Amateur and his team at the Thujinkol Normalisophiria in Paris, the lead compounds in ancient Egyptian coal were actually being absorbed through your skin with every application. Lead is a cumulative poison. It builds up in your body over time, stored in your bones, slowly poisoning your nervous system, your kidneys, your blood. You are exposing yourself to lead poisoning every single day, multiple times a day, for your entire adult life. But here is what is absolutely fascinating and deeply disturbing. You know it is not entirely safe. According to papyrus medical texts, analysed by Professor John Nunn, author of Ancient Egyptian Medicine, Egyptian physicians were aware that certain cosmetics caused health problems. They documented symptoms we now recognise as lead poisoning, headaches, fatigue, joint pain, digestive issues, even cognitive decline. Yet the practice continued for thousands of years. Why? According to Dr. Walter's research, Egyptians actually believed the lead-based coal had medicinal properties, and incredibly they might have been partially right about one thing. The lead compounds, when applied around the eyes, stimulated the production of nitric oxide in the skin cells, which could help fight bacterial infections. In a time before antibiotics, when eye infections were common and potentially blinding, this antimicrobial effect might have seemed worth the risk. But the cost chronic lead poisoning, affecting virtually the entire population, was catastrophic in ways they didn't fully understand. Now let's talk about the green eyeshadow that often accompanied the black coal. According to Dr. Fletcher's analysis of cosmetic residues from ancient Egyptian tombs, the vibrant green colour came from malachite, a copper carbonate mineral. While less immediately toxic than lead, malachite could still cause copper poisoning with prolonged exposure. Symptoms include liver damage, neurological problems, and in severe cases, death. You are not just wearing one toxic mineral on your face. You are wearing multiple poisonous compounds, layered together, reapplied multiple times daily. Your beauty routine doesn't stop with eye makeup. According to archaeological evidence, you also apply face powder, often made from white lead, lead carbonate, or pale ochre. The lead-based face powder creates that fashionably pale complexion that signals high status. After all, dark skin suggests outdoor labour, poverty, low class. Pale skin means you don't have to work in the sun. You are wealthy enough to stay indoors, privileged enough to avoid manual labour, but achieving that pale skin tone comes at a price. According to research by Professor Nasriya Sheikh from Cairo University, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, the white lead used in face cosmetics was even more toxic than the galena used for eye makeup. White lead is more easily absorbed through skin and more likely to cause acute poisoning. Symptoms include abdominal pain, vomiting, seizures, coma, and death. You are literally painting poison on your face to signal that you are too important to work. Let me introduce you to Princess Hatshepsut, one of ancient Egypt's most famous female pharaohs, who ruled around 1479 to 1458 BCE. According to Dr. Zahi Hawass's 2007 investigation into her mummified remains, Hatshepsut likely died in her 50s, relatively young even by ancient standards. Chemical analysis of cosmetic containers found in her tomb, conducted by Dr. Marc Gabold from the University of Montpellier, revealed significant residues of toxic compounds, including lead, mercury, and arsenic. Think about the pressure Hatshepsut faced. She wasn't just a woman trying to look beautiful, She was a female pharaoh in a male-dominated role, constantly having to prove her legitimacy, her divine right to rule. According to Dr. Fletcher's research, Hatshepsut sometimes depicted herself with a false beard in official artwork, adopting male pharaonic symbols to strengthen her claim to power. But in daily life, she also needed to embody ideal Egyptian beauty to maintain the support of the court, the priests, and the people. So every morning, according to the cosmetic implements found in royal tombs, analysed by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Hatshepsut would have spent hours on her beauty routine. Her cosmetics weren't just more elaborate than a commoner's, they were more toxic. The most expensive pigments, the rarest ingredients, the most vibrant colours all came from the most dangerous sources. The galena for her coal came from mines in the eastern desert, where slaves worked in brutal conditions extracting the lead-rich ore. The malachite came from Sinai, mined at great cost in both money and human lives. But here is where it gets even more disturbing. According to research published by Dr. Gabriela Serra in the Journal of the American Medical Association, the cosmetic containers themselves were often made of materials that added to the toxic load. Alabaster jars, while beautiful, could leach trace minerals into the cosmetics stored inside. Bronze containers could add copper compounds. Even the applicators made from wood, ivory, bone, or metal cooled introduce additional contaminants. Now let's talk about the ingredients that went beyond simple minerals. According to Dr. Manish's comprehensive study of ancient Egyptian perfumes and cosmetics, Egyptians added all sorts of substances to their beauty products to improve texture, scent, preservation, or supposed magical properties. Animal fats were common binding agents, fat from cattle, geese, even crocodiles. These fats could go rancid, becoming breeding grounds for bacteria. Honey was added as a preservative and humectant, safer than the metals, but still capable of harbouring bacterial spores. Meet Merritt, a perfume maker working in a temple workshop in Memphis around 1300 BCE. You are what we might call a cosmetic chemist today, though your training came through apprenticeship and religious instruction rather than formal chemistry. According to papyrus texts describing perfume recipes, analysed by Professor Robert Creech Rittner from the University of Chicago, you have access to dozens of ingredients: frankincense and myrrh from Arabia, cinnamon from East Africa, lily and lotus oils from local flowers, exotic spices from trade routes reaching as far as India. Your workshop, according to archaeological evidence from sites like Amarna excavated by Dr. Anna Stevens, is a small room adjacent to the temple complex. The walls are thick mud brick, keeping the interior cool even in the scorching Egyptian heat. Along one wall are rows of ceramic vessels containing your raw materials. There are grinding stones for pulverizing resins and minerals. There are small clay furnaces for heating and blending ingredients. The air is thick with scent, some pleasant, some decidedly not. Think about what you are creating here. According to ancient perfume recipes preserved on papyrus, analysed by Dr. Dora Goldsmith from the Free University of Berlin, Egyptian perfumes weren't like modern fragrances. They were thick, oily substances, more like what we'd call unguents or pomades. You are mixing aromatic resins with animal fats, creating semi-solid preparations that could be applied to skin or hair. These perfumes served multiple purposes, masking body odor in a hot climate with limited bathing facilities, signaling wealth and status, and supposedly pleasing the gods. But many of your ingredients are toxic. According to chemical analysis of ancient perfume residues conducted by Dr. Sean Coughlin at the British Museum, Egyptian perfumes often contained mercury compounds, arsenic-based preservatives, and lead-derived colorants. The beautiful red tint in some perfumes, often cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, that elegant white sheen, white lead, the preservatives that keep your perfumes from spoiling, frequently arsenic compounds. You are handling these substances every day. According to modern occupational health research on historical cosmetic workers, analysed by Dr. Andrea Seller at University College London, people in your profession would have suffered chronic poisoning from skin absorption and inhalation of toxic dusts. Your hands are stained with the residues of your trade. You probably have chronic headaches, maybe tremors, possibly kidney problems. If you live to 40, you'll be considered elderly, your body worn out by years of exposure to beautiful poisons. But the most disturbing part, according to temple records analysed by Dr. Richard Parkinson at the British Museum, you are probably a slave or low-status temple worker. The perfumes you make are for the elite, for nobles, priests, royalty. You'll never afford to use the precious preparations you create. You are destroying your health making luxury goods for people who consider you beneath their notice. The irony is crushing. Now let's explore the wigs, because no discussion of Egyptian beauty is complete without talking about hair. According to Dr. Fletcher's extensive research on Egyptian hair and wigs published in numerous academic papers, ancient Egyptians of both sexes often shaved their heads and wore elaborate wigs. This wasn't just about fashion, it was about hygiene, avoiding lice, comfort. Wigs could be removed in the heat, and status expensive wigs signalled wealth. Meet Henut Mahit, a wealthy merchant's wife living in Thebes around 1400 BCE, according to analysis of your mummified remains. Now in the British Museum and studied by Dr. Fletcher, you owned several elaborate wigs. The finest of these wigs, reconstructed from tomb paintings and archaeological finds, took months to create and cost approximately 3 deben of silver, equivalent to what a skilled labourer might earn in 3 months. Think about the construction of these wigs. According to Dr. Fletcher's research, the finest wigs were made from real human hair, though cheaper versions used plant fibres or sheep's wool. The hair had to be cleaned, sorted by length and quality, dyed if necessary, and then meticulously woven or knotted onto a base. The most elaborate styles, like the heavy shoulder-length wigs seen in noble tombs, could contain thousands of individual hair extensions. But here is where the beauty secret becomes terrifying. To maintain the wig's shape and sheen, Egyptians applied various treatments. According to chemical analysis of ancient wig residues conducted by Dr. Anu Olsson at the Swedish Research Institute in Istanbul, these treatments often included beeswax, relatively harmless, plant resins mostly safe, and various mineral compounds definitely not safe. Some wig treatments contained lead-based compounds to darken hair. Others used arsenic-based preparations, supposedly to prevent insect infestation. You are wearing these treated wigs in the Egyptian heat. According to climate data analysed by Dr. Judith Bunbury, a geoarchaeologist at Cambridge University, summer temperatures in ancient Thebes regularly exceeded 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Your heavy, treated wig sits on your shaved head, and you are sweating underneath it. Those toxic treatments are being absorbed through your scalp. The symptoms of chronic low-level arsenic poisoning skin lesions, peripheral neuropathy, increased cancer risk, accumulate slowly over decades. Let's talk about the perfumed cones you see in Egyptian tomb paintings. These mysterious objects, depicted on the heads of banquet guests in numerous ancient artworks, puzzled Egyptologists for years. According to research by Dr. Kathleen Cooney from UCLA, these were likely cones of scented fat, possibly mixed with wax and aromatic resins, that would slowly melt in the heat, releasing fragrance and coating the wig and shoulders with perfumed oils. But chemical analysis of similar preparations described in ancient texts suggests these cones contained the same toxic ingredients as other perfumes, potentially including mercury, lead, and arsenic compounds. So you are sitting at a banquet socializing with other nobles, while a cone of perfumed poison slowly melts on your head, running down your wig, absorbing through any exposed skin. According to Dr. Manish's analysis, the social obligation to wear these cones at formal events meant regular exposure to whatever toxins they contained. Now, I want to introduce you to someone whose story encapsulates the absolute extremes of Egyptian beauty culture. Meet Cleopatra Vervin. the last pharaoh of Egypt, ruling from 51 to 30 BCE. According to ancient historians like Plutarch, analyzed by modern scholars such as Dr. Duane Roller from Ohio State University, Cleopatra wasn't conventionally beautiful by Egyptian standards. Her power came more from intelligence, charm, and political acumen, but she still invested enormous resources in beauty preparations. According to recipes attributed to Cleopatra, preserved in later Greek and Roman texts, and analyzed by Dr. Helen King from the Open University, Cleopatra had her own cosmetic laboratories producing specialized preparations. Her coal recipe allegedly included burnt almonds, lead ore, and soot from ships. Her skin whitening cream reportedly contained white lead and animal fat. Her famous milk baths, documented by Pliny the Elder and analyzed by modern historians, required the milk of hundreds of donkeys, maintained in special stables, just to supply her bathing needs. Think about the resources this required. According to Dr. Sally Ann Ashton from the Fitzwilliam Museum, Cleopatra's beauty regime represented a massive economic investment. The donkeys for milk baths needed to be fed, housed, and maintained. The cosmetic workshops required skilled workers, exotic ingredients from across the empire, and constant production. The lead for her face powders had to be mined, processed, and purified. All of this during a time when Egypt was struggling financially, threatened by Rome, barely maintaining independence. But here is the truly terrifying part. Cleopatra knew about poisons. According to ancient historians, she experimented with various toxins, testing them on prisoners to understand their effects. She chose to die by snakebite, allegedly from an aes peck, because she'd researched what death would be most dignified and least painful. She understood toxic substances, yet she still covered her face with lead powder, lined her eyes with lead-based coal, and applied arsenic, containing perfumes. The social and political pressure to maintain the image of divine beauty was more powerful than the knowledge that her cosmetics were poisonous. Let's shift to the even more disturbing world of skin treatments. According to medical papyri analyzed by Dr. Nunn, Egyptians had numerous recipes for treating skin conditions, removing blemishes, and improving complexion. Some were relatively harmless: honey and milk masks, oil-based moisturizers, but others ranged from bizarre to deadly. Meet Nefret, a middle-aged woman in Deir el-Medina, the workers' village, around 1200 BCE, according to archaeological evidence from the site, analyzed by Dr. Lynn Meskel from Stanford University. You are not wealthy, but you are not desperately poor either. Your husband is a skilled craftsman working on the royal tombs. You have some disposable income, some social standing to maintain, and you are starting to see wrinkles, age spots, the inevitable signs of getting older in a culture that prizes youthful beauty. So you consult with the local wise woman, who, according to medical papyri, has recipes for all sorts of skin treatments. According to the Ebers Papyrus, one of the most important ancient Egyptian medical texts dating to around 1550 BCE and analyzed by countless scholars, skin whitening treatments included ingredients like natron sodium carbonate, frankincense, and rushnut oil, relatively safe. But other recipes called for ground-up minerals that we now know were toxic. Animal dung, seriously. Crocodile dung appears in multiple cosmetic recipes, and various caustic substances. One particularly horrifying recipe, according to Dr. Nunn's translation of medical papyri, called for treating blemishes with a mixture that included oxidized copper, toxic, honey, fine, natron, harsh but not immediately dangerous, and red ochre, mostly iron oxide, relatively safe. You are supposed to apply this mixture to your face and leave it on. The copper compounds would definitely cause skin irritation, possibly scarring, and with repeated use, systemic copper poisoning, leading to liver and kidney damage. But you use it anyway because the pressure to maintain youthful appearance is intense. According to analysis of ancient Egyptian literature by Dr. Deborah Sweeney from Tel Aviv University, Women's value in Egyptian society was closely tied to their appearance and ability to attract and keep a husband. Divorce was possible and not particularly stigmatized, but it often left women in difficult economic circumstances. So you need to keep looking young, keep your husband interested, maintain your social position. If that means rubbing toxic minerals on your face, well, that is the price of beauty. Let me tell you about one of the most disturbing aspects of Egyptian beauty culture: the use of animal products. We've mentioned animal fats as binding agents, but it goes far beyond that. According to Dr. Manish's research, Egyptian cosmetics and medicines routinely incorporated animal parts in ways that are shocking to modern sensibilities. Crocodile dung appears in multiple cosmetic recipes, supposedly to prevent pregnancy, treat skin conditions, or serve as a pigment source. Snake fat was used in hair treatments. Blood from various animals went into different preparations. Powdered beetles provided red coloring. The gall bladders of various animals were used in eye treatments. This wasn't primitive ignorance. These were sophisticated, literate people with advanced knowledge of chemistry and medicine for their time. They genuinely believed these ingredients worked, but the health implications were severe. According to modern parasitology research, analysed by Dr. El-Tayyib Elamin from the University of Khartoum, animal products, especially those from reptiles, can carry dangerous parasites, bacteria, and other pathogens. Using crocodile dung or snake fat on your skin or in your eyes risked introducing salmonella, E. coli, parasitic eggs, and numerous other infections. In an era before antibiotics or even basic germ theory, these infections could be disfiguring or fatal. Let's talk about the beauty standards for men, because this wasn't just a women's issue. According to Dr. Fletcher's research, Egyptian men of all classes wore eye makeup. Pharaohs and nobles also used perfumes, oils, and skin treatments. The expectation of male grooming was intense. Meet Amenhotep, a young scribe working in the temple complex at Karnak around 1350 BCE. You are in your 20s, ambitious, hoping to advance in the temple hierarchy. According to analysis of scribal culture by Dr. Edward Went from the University of Chicago, your appearance matters enormously. Scribes occupied a privileged position in Egyptian society. You are literate in a largely illiterate world. You handle important documents. You interact with high-ranking officials. Looking the part is essential. So every morning you apply kohl to your eyes. Not as elaborate as a noblewoman's makeup, but definitely visible. You shave your face and body hair because according to Egyptian standards, body hair is uncivilized. You apply scented oils to your skin, partly for moisture in the dry climate, partly to signal your status as someone who can afford such luxuries. Your appearance broadcasts that you are educated, important, civilized, worthy of respect. But according to chemical analysis of cosmetic residues from male tombs, the products you are using contain the same toxic ingredients as women's cosmetics. The lead-based kohl is poisoning you just as surely as it is poisoning Nefertari. The mercury-laced perfumes are accumulating in your body. You might spend 30 years as a successful scribe, rising to a comfortable position, well-respected, seemingly thriving. Then in your 50s you start having tremors, difficulty thinking clearly, kidney pain. By 60, if you live that long, you are incapacitated. The very products that helped you succeed in your career have destroyed your health. Now let's explore the religious dimensions of Egyptian beauty culture, because this wasn't purely secular vanity. According to Dr. Richard Wilkinson's research on Egyptian religious practices, personal grooming and cosmetics were deeply intertwined with religious belief and ritual purity. Meet Taratmes, a priestess in the temple of Hathor at Dendera around 1150 BCE. Hathor was the goddess of beauty, love, music, and joy, among many other attributes. According to Dr. Olaf Kappa's research on the Hathor cult, priestesses of Hathor were expected to embody the goddess's beauty. Your grooming standards are even higher than those of secular noblewomen. Every day, according to temple ritual texts analysed by Dr. Lanny Bell, you undergo elaborate purification and beautification rituals. You bathe in sacred pools. You are anointed with specially blessed oils. Your eye makeup is applied with religious significance. The kohl isn't just cosmetic, it is a ritual implement connecting you to divine powers. According to ancient texts, the green malachite eye paint was specifically associated with Hathor and had protective magical properties. Think about the psychological impact here. You are not just following fashion or social convention. You believe that these cosmetics have divine power, that they literally connect you to the gods, that they protect you from evil and bring blessings. When you experience symptoms of chronic poisoning headaches, fatigue, strange tingling in your extremities, you might interpret these not as toxic effects but as divine communication, as the goddess speaking through your body. According to medical anthropology research on religious healing practices, this kind of belief system can create a feedback loop where harmful practices are reinforced by the very suffering they cause. You feel ill after applying your sacred cosmetics, but you interpret the illness as a spiritual experience, requiring more devotion, more elaborate rituals, potentially more of the toxic substances. The religion and the poisoning become inseparably intertwined. Let's talk about the economics of beauty in ancient Egypt, because the cosmetics trade was a major industry. According to Dr. Andrea McDowell's research on economic documents from Deir el-Medina, cosmetics and perfumes were valuable commodities, often used in trade and sometimes as payment for labour. Records show workers at the royal tombs being paid partly in grain and partly in oil for cosmetics. A jar of quality kohl might cost a day's wages for a labourer. Imported perfumes could cost many times more. According to Dr. Jansen's comprehensive study, commodity prices from the Ramessid period, a small quantity of high-quality perfume oil could cost as much as a goat or several days' wages. For precious ingredients like frankincense, myrrh, or exotic resins, prices could be astronomical. This created a stratified beauty market. According to Dr. Lynn Meskel's analysis of material culture at Deir el-Medina, wealthier workers might own several cosmetic containers, multiple types of oils, and relatively fresh, high-quality products. Poorer residents might have one or two basic cosmetics, often older and potentially more contaminated. The very poorest might make their own cosmetics from whatever they could gather or afford, potentially even more dangerous than commercial products because of improvised ingredients and lack of skill in preparation. But here is what is fascinating. Even the poorest Egyptians tried to maintain some cosmetic routine. According to Dr. Rosalie David's research on ancient Egyptian social structure, eye makeup in particular was nearly universal across classes and genders. Archaeological evidence shows even quite humble tombs containing coal pots and applicators. The social pressure, the cultural expectation, the religious significance, all combine to make cosmetics not a luxury but a necessity, regardless of the cost in money or health. Meet Kenzit, a laundry worker living in a small mud brick house in Thebes around 1280 BCE. According to Reconstruction of Working Class Life by Dr. Kasia Spakowska from Swansea University, your life is one of constant labour. You spend your days at the river or the washing pools, pounding clothes on rocks, scrubbing linen in natron solution, your hands perpetually wrinkled and raw from water and harsh cleaning agents. You can't afford the expensive coal that nobles use. According to market records, the finest galena-based coal costs far more than you earn in a week. But you still need eye makeup. Without it, you'd face social stigma. People would think you are uncivilized, possibly immoral. So you make your own, grinding whatever dark minerals you can find or afford charcoal, soot from cooking fires, possibly even cheaper, more contaminated lead ores. Your homemade coal is even more dangerous than the commercial product. According to chemical analysis of cosmetic artifacts from non-elite contexts, conducted by Dr. Sarah, cheaper cosmetics often had higher concentrations of toxins and more impurities. That galena you are grinding might contain arsenic, antimony, or other toxic metals from the ore. You are not a trained cosmetic maker. You don't know how to purify ingredients or test for quality. You are just trying to afford basic grooming in a society that demands it. Think about the crushing unfairness here. According to Dr. Mescal's analysis, the wealthy could afford higher quality cosmetics that were marginally safer, though still toxic, fresher oils less likely to be rancid, and professional application that minimized overuse. The poor, like you, are using cheaper, dirtier, more dangerous products, often in larger quantities, trying to achieve the same effect. The people who can least afford health problems are exposing themselves to the highest levels of toxic materials. Beauty culture is literally a class-based poison, with the poor suffering most. Now let's turn to one of the most disturbing aspects, childhood exposure. According to tomb paintings and archaeological evidence analysed by Dr. Gay Robbins from Emory University, even children wore cosmetics, particularly eye makeup. This practice began at a young age, certainly by adolescence, and sometimes earlier. Meet Mutnojmet, a girl of 12 in a priestly family in Heliopolis, around 1320 BCE. You've just entered adolescence, and according to cultural expectations documented in ancient texts, you are now expected to begin serious grooming practices. Your mother has given you your first cosmetic box, a small wooden container with compartments for kohl, green eye paint, red ochre for lips and cheeks, and some scented oil. According to modern pediatric toxicology, children are far more vulnerable to toxic substances than adults. Their bodies are still developing. Their nervous systems are particularly susceptible to damage from heavy metals. They have higher metabolic rates that increase absorption of poisons. The same level of lead exposure that might cause chronic health problems in an adult can cause severe developmental damage in a child, but you are applying lead-based cosmetics every day, starting at 12. According to Dr. Nunn's analysis of medical texts, ancient Egyptians didn't understand the special vulnerability of children to these substances. By the time you are 30, you've had 18 years of daily lead exposure. The cumulative damage to your nervous system, your kidneys, your bones, it is catastrophic in ways that would horrify modern medical professionals. And it is not just physical damage. According to modern research on lead exposure's effects on cognition, documented by Dr. Bruce Lampier from Simon Fraser University, chronic lead exposure during childhood and adolescence can affect intelligence, impulse control, emotional regulation, and decision-making abilities. Some of what historians have interpreted as cultural practices or personality traits might actually have been population-wide symptoms of cosmetic poisoning. Let's talk about pregnancy, because this is where Egyptian beauty practices become especially heartbreaking. According to medical papyri and tomb paintings analysed by Dr. Faiza Haikal from the American University in Cairo, pregnant women continued their beauty routines, including use of toxic cosmetics. Meet Neferkare, a young woman pregnant with your first child in Memphis, around 1200 BCE. You are excited, nervous, hoping desperately that both you and the baby survive. According to Dr. Rosalie David's research on ancient Egyptian medicine, maternal and infant mortality rates were high, perhaps 1 in every 10 women dying in childbirth, and nearly half of children dying before age 5. But according to cultural expectations, pregnancy doesn't exempt you from beauty standards. You continue to apply your daily makeup, wear your wigs, use your perfumes. According to Dr. Manish, his research, there were actually special perfumes and cosmetics marketed to pregnant women, supposedly to ensure healthy pregnancy and easy delivery. Some of these contained even more toxic ingredients, under the theory that stronger scents and more potent substances would be more effective. Think about what is happening. According to modern obstetric toxicology, lead crosses the placental barrier easily. Every time you apply lead-based makeup, you are exposing your developing fetus. Lead exposure during pregnancy is associated with increased risk of miscarriage, stillbirth, premature delivery, low birth weight, and developmental problems in surviving children. Mercury and arsenic, also common in Egyptian cosmetics, have similar effects. Your baby, if it survives to birth, will be born with lead already in its system, possibly at levels that cause brain damage. According to Dr. Scheidel's demographic research on ancient populations, the infant mortality rate in Egypt was catastrophically high. Not all of that was due to cosmetics, of course. Infectious disease, poor nutrition, and inadequate medical care all played roles. But the toxic burden from cosmetics certainly contributed. And if your child survives, the cycle continues. According to Dr. Robbins's research, young children were sometimes given diluted versions of adult cosmetics. By the time they reached adolescence, they'd be using the full toxic preparations, ensuring another generation of lead-poisoned Egyptians. Let's explore the mummification connection, because this reveals something dark about Egyptian knowledge of toxic substances. According to Dr. Salima Ikram from the American University in Cairo, whose work on mummification practices is authoritative, ancient Egyptian embalmers had sophisticated knowledge of preservative chemicals. Meet Ufaa, a master embalmer working in Thebes around 1100 BCE. According to documentary evidence analysed by Dr. John Taylor from the British Museum, you are part of a specialised profession with secret knowledge passed down through generations. You know which substances preserve flesh, which prevent decay, which drive away insects. You work with natron for desiccation, various resins for preservation, oils for waterproofing, linen for wrapping. Here is the disturbing connection. Some of the same substances you use for mummification appear in cosmetic recipes. Natron, used to dry out corpses, also appears in skin treatments and deodorants. Various resins used to preserve dead bodies also go into perfumes. According to Dr. Manish's research, the line between cosmetic chemistry and mortuary chemistry was blurry in ancient Egypt. Think about the knowledge implications. You know, these substances can preserve dead tissue. They're literally strong enough to prevent decomposition. You can see that they're caustic, harsh, potentially damaging. Yet they're being used on living skin, sometimes in even higher concentrations than you use for mummies. According to Dr. Ikram's analysis, embalmers had to undergo purification rituals and take protective measures when handling mummification substances. But people were putting similar substances on their faces every single morning. Did you understand the connection? Did you realize that the preservative you used on the dead was the same substance women were putting around their eyes? According to Dr. Nunn's analysis, there was some exchange of knowledge between embalmers and physicians, cosmetic makers, but it seems to have been incomplete. The specialized knowledge of toxicity might have been kept secret within the embalming profession, not shared with the wider population, who were using these substances for beauty. Now, let's discuss the archaeological evidence that reveals the extent of cosmetic-related health problems. According to Dr. Patricia Podzorski from the University of Memphis, analysis of ancient Egyptian mummies using modern medical imaging and chemical analysis has revealed patterns of pathology consistent with chronic heavy metal poisoning. CT scans of mummies, conducted by teams including Dr. Zahi Hawass, have shown evidence of kidney damage, bone abnormalities, and cardiovascular disease that could result from long-term lead and mercury exposure. Chemical analysis of bone and tissue samples from mummies has detected elevated levels of lead, mercury, and arsenic, often at concentrations that would be considered severely poisonous by modern standards. One particularly revealing study, published by Dr. Alejandro Jimenez Serrano from the University of Janan, examined hair samples from mummies across different social classes and time periods. The research found that lead levels in hair increased dramatically during adolescence, exactly when intensive cosmetic use typically began, and remained elevated throughout adult life. The pattern was consistent across genders and social classes, though nobles showed slightly lower levels, possibly because they could afford marginally purer products. But here is what is most disturbing. According to Dr. Rosalie David's biomedical analysis of mummies, some individuals showed evidence of multiple organ damage consistent with severe chronic poisoning, yet their tombs contained large quantities of cosmetics, suggesting they continued using these products until death. The cosmetics were literally killing them, yet they couldn't or wouldn't stop. Let's talk about the attempted solutions and alternatives. According to medical papyri, ancient Egyptian physicians did try to develop safer cosmetic formulations, or at least treatments for the symptoms of cosmetic poisoning. Meet Psamtik, a physician in Alexandria during the late period, around 350 BCE. According to the medical papyri you study, which represent accumulated knowledge from centuries of Egyptian medical practice, there are treatments for many of the symptoms we now recognize as poisoning from cosmetics. Headaches, you have remedies. Digestive problems, multiple treatments. Skin, rashes, various applications. But according to Dr. Nunn's analysis, these treatments addressed symptoms without understanding the underlying cause. You treat the headache with various herbs and oils, never connecting it to the lead-based kohl applied to the eyes every morning. You treat the tremors and weakness with strengthening tonics, never realizing they're caused by chronic mercury exposure from perfumes. You see the same symptoms across generations, across social classes, but without the concept of cumulative chemical poisoning, you can't identify the true cause. Some physicians did try to develop alternative cosmetic formulations. According to Dr. Manish's research on perfume recipes, some texts describe cosmetics using less toxic ingredients, charcoal instead of galena for eye makeup, plant-based dyes instead of mineral pigments for coloring. But these alternatives were expensive, often required rare ingredients, and frequently didn't work as well aesthetically. The toxic versions produced more vibrant colors, lasted longer, had better texture. The market demanded them. According to economic principles analyzed by Dr. Sitter von Redden from the University of Freiburg, when a product has strong cultural demand, safer but less effective alternatives struggle to compete. Egyptians wanted dark, dramatic eye makeup that stayed on all day in hot, humid conditions. Lead-based kohl delivered that. Plant-based alternatives smudged, faded, didn't achieve the same intensity. So despite knowing these products could cause health problems, people kept choosing the toxic versions because they worked better for their cosmetic purposes. Let's explore the foreign influences and trade in beauty products, because Egypt didn't exist in isolation. According to Dr. Catherine Bard's research on ancient Egyptian trade networks, Egypt imported cosmetic ingredients from across the Mediterranean, Africa, and even Asia. Frankincense came from Punt, somewhere in the Horn of Africa or southern Arabia. The exact location is still debated by scholars like Dr. Kenneth Kitchen from the University of Liverpool. Myrrh came from similar regions. Cinnamon came from Sri Lanka or East Africa. Lapis lazuli for blue pigments came from as far away as Afghanistan. The cosmetic trade was genuinely international, one of the major drivers of ancient commerce. But this international trade also meant international exposure to toxic substances. According to Dr. Roberta Tomba's research on ancient trade at the British Museum, imported ingredients weren't regulated or tested. A merchant might sell you frankincense that was actually cut with cheaper resins, some of which could be toxic. Malachite from distant mines might be contaminated with other minerals. You had no way to verify purity or safety. Meet Kababash, a cosmetic merchant in the port city of Alexandria around 300 BCE, during the Ptolemaic period when Egypt was ruled by Greek pharaohs following Alexander the Great's conquest. According to papyrus business documents analysed by Dr. Willie Clarisse from the Catholic University of Leuven, You are part of a commercial network stretching across the Mediterranean. You import ingredients from Phoenicia, Greece, Arabia, Nubia, Libya. You sell finished cosmetics to wealthy clients and raw materials to temples and workshops. You've become rich from this trade. Cosmetics are luxury goods with high profit margins, but you also know the business involves some ethical compromises. That pure galena you are selling, it comes from a mine that employs slaves working in brutal conditions. According to archaeological evidence of ancient mining operations analysed by Dr. Rosemarie Clem from the University of Munich, those slaves have life expectancies measured in years, breathing lead dust, developing poisoning symptoms within months. You don't see them. They're hundreds of miles away, but your business depends on their suffering. The premium malachite you charge extra for, honestly, you are not certain it is any different from the regular grade. It comes from the same suppliers, it looks about the same, but rich clients are willing to pay more for something labelled premium. So that is what you call it. Whether it is actually purer, less contaminated, safer to use, you don't really know, and you are not especially motivated to find out. According to Dr. von Rieden's research on ancient commerce, information asymmetry was a huge problem in ancient trade. Sellers knew more about their products than buyers, and there were no consumer protection laws, no regulatory agencies, no independent testing. If you got sick from cosmetics, you had no legal recourse against the merchant who sold them. The market was essentially unregulated, allowing dangerous products to circulate freely. Now let's examine the Greek and Roman perspectives on Egyptian cosmetics, because as Egypt was conquered first by Alexander's Greeks and then by Rome, foreign observers commented on Egyptian beauty practices with fascination and horror. According to Pliny the Elder, the Roman encyclopedist whose natural history written around 77 to 79 CE is analysed extensively by scholars like Dr. Mary Began from the University of Manchester. Romans viewed Egyptian cosmetics as exotic, luxurious, and somewhat decadent. Pliny documented numerous Egyptian cosmetic recipes and ingredients, sometimes with astonishment at their complexity and expense. But Greek and Roman writers also noted health problems. According to the poet Martial and the satirist Juvenal, whose works are analysed by Dr. J.P. Sullivan from UC Santa Barbara, Roman women who adopted Egyptian-style heavy makeup were criticised both aesthetically and for the health effects. These writers describe women with tremors, skin problems, and other symptoms that we now recognise as cosmetic poisoning. Galen, the great Greek physician working in the Roman period around 160 to 200 CE, whose medical writings are analysed by Dr. Vivian Nutton from University College London, specifically warned against the use of lead-based cosmetics. According to Galen's texts, he'd observed that women who heavily used white lead face powder developed characteristic symptoms: pallor, weakness, digestive problems, what he called lead disease. He recommended alternatives using chalk or rice powder, but here is the tragic part. Galen's warnings were largely ignored. According to Dr. Susan Stewart's research on cosmetics in the classical world, lead-based cosmetics remained popular in Greece and Rome for centuries after Galen's warnings. The desire for the fashionable pale complexion, the lack of effective alternatives, and the slow development of symptoms meant people continued using these products despite medical advice against them. Let's talk about the religious and magical aspects more deeply, because the line between cosmetics, medicine, and magic in ancient Egypt was almost non-existent. According to Dr. Geraldine Pinch's research on Egyptian magic, many cosmetic recipes included not just physical ingredients but also spells, incantations, and ritual requirements. Meet Isetemkeb, a wealthy woman consulting with a physician in Thebes around 1050 BCE during Egypt's third intermediate period. You've developed a skin condition, possibly a rash, possibly early symptoms of cosmetic poisoning, though neither you nor your doctor understands it that way. According to Medical Magical Papyri, analysed by Dr. Pinch, the treatment you are prescribed includes both physical applications and magical procedures. The doctor prepares a cosmetic treatment containing honey, myrrh, and ground minerals, but he also recites specific spells over the preparation, invoking the goddess Isis, the god Thoth, and various protective deities. You are instructed to apply the treatment only at certain times of day, while reciting particular prayers, facing specific directions. The line between chemistry and ritual is completely blurred. According to papyrus texts like the London Medical Papyrus, analysed by Dr. Stephen Quirk from University College London, many cosmetic recipes include phrases like "to be recited while grinding," or "say this spell while applying." The belief was that the magical words added potency to the physical ingredients, that divine power worked through the cosmetic preparations. Think about the psychological implications. If you believe your cosmetic is imbued with magical power blessed by the gods, you are more likely to continue using it, even if it causes discomfort or symptoms. The symptoms themselves might be interpreted as spiritual experiences, the gods working through your body, evil spirits being driven out, magical transformation occurring. The poisoning becomes sacralized, transformed from a medical problem into a religious experience. According to anthropological research on medical systems, analysed by Dr. Byron Good from Harvard Medical School, when illness is interpreted through a religious framework, it can be very difficult to recognise and address the actual physical causes. You might suffer from severe lead poisoning, but because you understand your symptoms as spiritual communications or divine trials, you never connect them to the lead-based cosmetics you apply daily. In fact, you might increase your use of cosmetics and associated rituals, thinking more devotion will cure you, inadvertently making the poisoning worse. Let's discuss the gender dynamics more thoroughly, because while both men and women used cosmetics, the pressures and implications were different. According to Dr. Gay Robbins's comprehensive research on women in ancient Egypt, Egyptian women had relatively high status compared to women in many other ancient cultures. They could own property, initiate divorce, conduct business, and even occasionally rule as pharaoh. But this relative equality didn't exempt them from intense beauty pressures. In fact, according to Dr. Lynn Meskel's analysis, the importance of physical attractiveness for women was, if anything, more intense precisely because women had more social mobility. A beautiful woman from a modest background might marry into a higher social class. An unattractive woman from a good family might struggle to make an advantageous match. Meet Tosret, a young woman from a family of mid-ranking officials in Thebes around 1190 BCE. You are about 16, and according to documentary evidence of marriage customs, analysed by Dr. Deborah Sweeney, you are at the age where marriage negotiations should begin. Your family's status is respectable, but not exceptional. Your father has some wealth, but not vast resources. Your future security depends largely on making a good marriage, and in the marriage market, according to love poetry and literary texts, analysed by Dr. Michael Fox from the University of Wisconsin, physical beauty is paramount. The ideal woman in Egyptian love poetry has a face like gold, eyes like lapis lazuli, skin smooth as lotus petals, a body graceful as a gazelle. These aren't just poetic metaphors. They're beauty standards you are expected to approximate, so you spend hours daily on your appearance. According to tomb paintings showing women's grooming, you have your handmaid pluck your eyebrows, apply elaborate eye makeup, redden your lips and cheeks, oil your skin until it gleams. You wear your best wig, your finest jewellery, your most fashionable clothes. You are performing beauty constantly because your economic future depends on being seen as desirable. The toxic cosmetics you are using, the lead-based coal, the mercury-laced perfumes, are destroying your health, but refusing them isn't really an option. According to Dr. Robbins's analysis, a woman without makeup would be seen as unfashionable at best, immoral or insane at worst. The social pressure is absolutely overwhelming. And here is the cruelest irony. According to modern medical research on lead poisoning in women, chronic lead exposure affects fertility, increases risk of miscarriage and stillbirth, and can cause developmental problems in children. So the very cosmetics you are using to make yourself more attractive as a wife and mother are damaging your ability to successfully bear healthy children. The beauty culture is literally destroying the reproductive health of the entire population. Let's examine the class dimensions more carefully. According to papyrus documents analysed by Dr. Andrea McDowell, cosmetic expenditures represented a significant portion of household budgets across social classes. But the impact was very different for rich and poor. For a noble family, according to economic records, cosmetics might represent 5 to 10% of household expenses. Significant, but not crippling. They could afford quality products, professional application, and fresh ingredients. Their cosmetic poisoning, while real, accumulated more slowly because they used better products. For a working-class family, according to Dr. Jansen's price data, cosmetics might consume 15 to 20% of income, a crushing burden. They bought the cheapest available products, often of dubious quality, sometimes dangerously adulterated. They couldn't afford to replace them frequently, so they used older, more contaminated preparations. They suffered more severe poisoning from worse products, had less access to medical care when symptoms developed, and faced greater economic consequences if illness prevented them from working. Meet Henotawi, a widow trying to support 2 children in Memphis around 1150 BCE. According to demographic research by Dr. Janet Johnson from the University of Chicago, widowhood was economically precarious for women, especially those without grown children or substantial family support. You work as a washerwoman, and according to wage records, you earn barely enough to feed your family, but you still need cosmetics. According to social norms, appearing without makeup would damage your reputation, possibly affect your ability to get work. Clients might refuse to hire a washerwoman who looks uncivilized or immoral, so you budget carefully, buying the cheapest coal you can find, making your own perfumes from whatever ingredients you can scavenge or afford. That cheap coal is killing you faster than expensive products would. According to chemical analysis, lower quality cosmetics often had more impurities and higher concentrations of toxic elements. But you have no choice. You need to maintain appearances to maintain your income. The economic pressure overrides health concerns, assuming you even understand the health risks, which you probably don't. Think about the intergenerational trap this creates. You are exposing yourself to toxic cosmetics out of economic necessity. The poisoning makes you chronically ill, reducing your ability to work, making you poorer. Your children grow up in poverty, lacking proper nutrition, exposed to the same toxic cosmetics because they face the same social pressures. They suffer worse health effects because poor nutrition makes them more vulnerable to poisoning. The cycle perpetuates across generations, with beauty culture serving as a mechanism of class-based health disparities. Now, let's explore the end of ancient Egyptian civilization and the persistence of these beauty practices. According to Dr. Alan Lloyd from Swansea University, whose research covers Egypt's late period through Roman occupation, traditional Egyptian culture, including cosmetic practices, continued well into the Roman period and even beyond, gradually blending with Greek and Roman influences. Meet Themathis, a woman living in Roman Egypt around 150 CE. According to papyrus documents from this period analysed by Dr. Roger Bagnall from New York University, you are ethnically Egyptian but culturally Greco-Roman. You speak Greek as well as Egyptian. You worship both traditional Egyptian gods and Roman deities. And your cosmetic practices blend Egyptian, Greek, and Roman traditions. You still use for eye makeup. That practice has persisted for thousands of years and will continue for centuries more. But according to archaeological evidence, the formulations are changing slightly. Some coal is now made with antimony sulfide instead of lead sulfide, still toxic, but somewhat less so. Greek and Roman influence has introduced new ingredients, some safer, some equally dangerous, but the fundamental pattern persists: social pressure to use cosmetics, limited understanding of toxic effects, products that slowly poison their users. According to Dr. Nutton's research on medicine in the Roman Empire, despite advances in medical knowledge, despite Galen's warnings about lead, despite increasing evidence of cosmetic-related illness, the practices continue. The cultural power of beauty standards overwhelms medical knowledge. This persistence is absolutely crucial for understanding ancient Egyptian beauty culture. It wasn't a brief fad or a misunderstanding quickly corrected. These practices continued for literally thousands of years, from at least 3000 BCE through the Roman period, and in some forms into the Islamic period and beyond. We're talking about 4,000 plus years of cosmetic practices that modern analysis reveals were poisonous. According to Dr. Robert Garland's research on daily life in ancient civilizations, this long persistence suggests several things. First, the symptoms of chronic cosmetic poisoning developed slowly enough that people didn't make clear causal connections. Second, the social and cultural pressures for cosmetic use were enormously powerful, overwhelming individual health concerns. Third, alternative practices either weren't developed or weren't adopted because they didn't meet aesthetic expectations. Let me introduce you to one final person whose story encapsulates everything we've discussed. Meet Merit Ta, sometimes described as the world's first named female physician, supposedly practicing around 2700 BCE during Egypt's Old Kingdom. Actually, according to recent research by Dr. Jakub Kwiecinski from the University of Colorado, Merit Ta as a physician is likely a modern myth. The historical figure was probably a noble woman, not a doctor, but the myth itself is revealing. According to Dr. Kwiecinski's analysis, the creation of Merit Ta as a female physician figure in modern scholarship reflects our desire to find ancient women in scientific roles, breaking gender barriers, practicing rational medicine. We want to believe that ancient Egyptian women had access to medical knowledge that could have protected them from cosmetic poisoning. The reality, according to medical papyri analysed by Dr. Nunn, is more complex. There probably were female medical practitioners in ancient Egypt, though they're poorly documented in surviving sources. But even male physicians with the best available medical knowledge didn't understand cumulative chemical poisoning. The greatest doctors in ancient Egypt couldn't protect themselves or their families from cosmetic toxicity, because they lacked the conceptual framework to recognize it. This is one of the most profound tragedies of ancient Egyptian beauty culture. It wasn't ignorance or stupidity that led people to poison themselves with cosmetics. These were sophisticated, intelligent people with impressive knowledge in many areas, but without modern chemistry, without understanding of cumulative toxicity, without the ability to trace cause and effect across decades, they couldn't recognize that their beauty products were killing them. Let's bring this into modern context, because the parallels are both obvious and disturbing. According to the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics, a modern advocacy organization, current cosmetic regulations in many countries, including the United States, are shockingly minimal. The FDA does not require safety testing of cosmetics before they go to market. Companies can use ingredients that haven't been fully tested for safety. The system relies largely on industry self-regulation. A 2016 report by the Environmental Working Group, analysed by Dr. Necker Lieber, found that many modern cosmetics contain ingredients that are potential carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, or developmental toxins. While these aren't as immediately dangerous as ancient Egyptian lead-based cosmetics, the pattern is eerily similar. Products that are socially expected or even required, that contain potentially harmful ingredients, that aren't adequately regulated, that people use despite some awareness of potential risks. According to research by Dr. Philippa Darbra from the University of Reading, Some modern cosmetic ingredients like parabens have been found in breast tissue from cancer biopsies, though the causal relationship isn't fully established. Other ingredients like phthalates are suspected endocrine disruptors. The long-term effects of many cosmetic ingredients aren't well studied, partly because they accumulate slowly over decades, making it difficult to establish clear cause and effect relationships. Sound familiar? Ancient Egyptians using lead-based cosmetics for decades before symptoms became severe. Modern people using products with ingredients that might cause problems only after years of accumulation. In both cases, the slow development of symptoms makes it easy to not connect cause and effect. According to Dr. Stacey Malkan, author of Not Just a Pretty Face, The Ugly Side of the Beauty Industry, modern beauty culture creates many of the same pressures ancient Egyptian culture did. Women in particular face intense social and economic pressure to meet beauty standards. The cosmetics industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars globally. The average woman uses 12 personal care products daily, containing hundreds of different chemicals. We're in the midst of a massive, uncontrolled experiment on human health, and we won't fully understand the consequences for decades. Now, as we approach the end of our long night exploring ancient Egyptian beauty secrets, think about what we've discovered. We've met Nefertari, the noblewoman applying lead-based kohl every morning, slowly poisoning herself in pursuit of the perfect eye makeup. We've encountered Merit, the perfume maker destroying her health, creating luxury products she'll never afford. We've walked with Cleopatra, the brilliant queen who understood poisons yet covered herself with toxic cosmetics because political necessity demanded it. We've seen how beauty culture functioned as a social system that poisoned entire populations across thousands of years. We've explored how economic pressures forced the poor to use the most dangerous products. We've examined how religious belief systems sacralized cosmetic practices, making it harder to recognize their dangers. We've witnessed how gender dynamics made beauty requirements especially burdensome and harmful for women, though men suffered too. According to Professor Joan Fletcher, whose life's work has been studying ancient Egyptian beauty practices, what is most striking is the sheer persistence of these practices, despite their toxicity. Generation after generation, century after century, millennium after millennium, Egyptians applied lead to their eyes, mercury to their skin, arsenic to their hair. They did this not from ignorance but from powerful cultural forces: the desire to look beautiful, the need to signal social status, the religious significance of cosmetic rituals, the economic pressures of marriage and employment markets. The ancient Egyptians created one of history's most magnificent civilizations. They built pyramids that still stand 4,500 years later. They developed sophisticated mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. They created art of breathtaking beauty and literature of profound insight. And all of this while systematically poisoning themselves with their cosmetics. The irony is crushing and beautiful and terrifying all at once. They pursued beauty with such dedication that they were willing to suffer and die for it. The cosmetics that signaled civilization, wealth, and divine favor were simultaneously destroying the health of everyone who used them. The very things that made them feel more human, more civilized, more connected to the gods, were poisoning them at the cellular level. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps after your own beauty routine, think about the Egyptian woman from 3,000 years ago who also just finished her evening skincare. She carefully removed her wig, wiped off her makeup with oil, applied night creams and oils. She looked in her copper mirror and felt satisfied with her appearance, pleased that she'd maintained the standards expected of her. She had no idea that the cosmetics she'd just removed had deposited another small dose of lead into her system, contributing to the chronic poisoning that would eventually kill her. Think about the perfume maker whose hands were stained with the residues of her trade, who created beautiful scents for people who never saw her as human. Think about the child given her first cosmetic box at 12. beginning a lifetime of daily poison application without understanding the consequences. Think about the widow who had to choose between buying cheap, toxic cosmetics to maintain employability or facing social stigma and economic ruin. Their stories echo across millennia. The pressure to conform to beauty standards, the economic realities that make harmful practices seem necessary, the way suffering becomes normalized when it is universal and gradual. These patterns haven't disappeared. We've eliminated lead from most cosmetics, but we've replaced it with other ingredients whose long-term effects we don't fully understand. We've created new beauty standards, new pressures, new products. According to Dr. Fletcher's comprehensive analysis, understanding ancient Egyptian beauty culture isn't just about satisfying historical curiosity. It is about recognizing patterns that persist across time and culture, the ways social pressures override individual health, the ways beauty standards can become literally deadly, the ways entire civilizations can collectively engage in harmful practices for generations without recognizing the damage. The ancient Egyptians left us an extraordinary legacy. Their art, architecture, literature, and ideas continue to inspire wonder 4,000 years after their civilization's peak. But they also left us a warning, preserved in the chemical residues in mummies' bones, in the cosmetic containers buried in tombs, in the medical papyri describing symptoms of poisoning without understanding the cause. They showed us that intelligence, sophistication, and cultural achievement don't protect against collective self-harm when beauty standards become powerful enough. They demonstrated that practices can persist for thousands of years despite causing widespread suffering, if the cultural forces supporting them are strong enough. They revealed that the line between enhancement and poison, between beauty and death, can be terrifyingly thin. Tonight, as you rest in your bed, secure in a world with regulated cosmetics and medical knowledge that would astound ancient Egyptians, remember the countless men and women who painted their faces with poison, seeking beauty at any cost. Remember their dedication, their suffering, and their humanity. They were people like us, trying to look good, fit in, succeed in their society, connect with something larger than themselves. Sweet dreams, and may you wake tomorrow with a deeper appreciation for the regulations protecting your cosmetics, the medical knowledge guiding product safety, and the ongoing work to make beauty culture less harmful. The ancient Egyptians couldn't see the invisible poison accumulating in their bodies. We have that knowledge now. The question is, what will we do with it? What beauty standards are we maintaining that future generations will look back on with horror? What slow poisons are we accepting as normal, necessary, inevitable? Thank you for joining me on this journey through the perfumed chambers and cosmetic workshops of ancient Egypt. Thank you for meeting Nefertari and Merit, Cleopatra and Kenzit, Hatshepsut and Hinatawi. Thank you for witnessing their lives, their choices, and their suffering. They deserve to be remembered not just as statistics or archaeological specimens, but as real people who faced impossible choices in a culture that demanded beauty at any price. The next time you look in a mirror, the next time you apply makeup or perfume, the next time you feel pressure to meet beauty standards, remember the Egyptian woman doing the same thing 3,000 years ago. Remember that she was human, like you. Remember that she was intelligent, like you. Remember that she was trapped in a cultural system that demanded she poison herself to be acceptable. And remember that understanding her world might help us recognize and resist the similar traps in our own. Sleep well. Dream of alabaster jars and lotus perfumes, of kohl-lined eyes and golden wigs, of a civilization so magnificent it still astounds us, and so flawed it poisoned itself in pursuit of beauty. May we learn from their mistakes. May we recognize that true beauty doesn't require suffering. And may we build a world where looking in the mirror doesn't mean confronting the daily choice between social acceptance and personal health. Good night, and remember, every time you choose to question beauty standards, to prioritize health over appearance, to resist harmful cultural pressures, you are honoring the memory of those ancient Egyptians who never had that choice. They were trapped by lack of knowledge. We aren't. that makes our choices both easier and more morally significant. Sweet dreams, and may you wake with the wisdom to choose differently. But before we fully part ways tonight, there is so much more to explore about the infrastructure of beauty in ancient Egypt. The people who made it all possible, the systems that sustained these deadly practices, and the ripple effects that touched every corner of society. Let me take you deeper into this world, because understanding the full scope of ancient Egyptian beauty culture reveals truths about human nature that resonate across millennia. Let's journey to the source of all that beautiful poison, the mines where galena and malachite were extracted. According to Dr. Rosemary Clem and Dr. Dietrich Clem, whose comprehensive study, Gold and Gold Mining in Ancient Egypt and Nubia, covers mineral extraction across Egyptian history, ancient Egyptian mining operations were brutal enterprises, often staffed by slaves, prisoners of war, and convicted criminals. Meet Amenemhab, a man condemned to the galena mines in the eastern desert around 1450 BCE. You are not here because you are a criminal in any modern sense. According to legal papyri analysed by Dr. John Gee from Brigham Young University, you were convicted of failing to pay a debt, a crime that in ancient Egypt could result in enslavement. Your creditor sold your labour to the state, and the state assigned you to the mines. The journey to the mines alone is nearly fatal. According to archaeological evidence from desert routes studied by Dr. Stephen Sidebotham from the University of Delaware, mining camps in the eastern desert were located 100 to 200 kilometers from the Nile Valley, through some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. You travel in a convoy of condemned workers, chained together, receiving minimal water and food. Several of your fellow prisoners die before even reaching the mines. Their bodies are left in the desert. There is no time or inclination to bury them. When you arrive at the mining camp, the reality is worse than you imagined. According to archaeological excavation of ancient mining sites by Dr. Clem, these camps consisted of crude stone shelters, offering minimal protection from the sun's brutal heat during the day and the bone-chilling cold of desert nights. Water is scarce, rationed strictly, often contaminated. Food is barely adequate. Grain porridge, occasionally some dried fish or dates. Never enough to fully satisfy hunger. Think about your daily work routine. According to reconstruction of ancient mining techniques by Dr. Carol Meyer from the Oriental Institute, you wake before dawn, work through the morning heat, rest briefly during the worst afternoon sun, then work again until dark. Your tools are simple stone hammers, copper or bronze chisels, baskets for carrying ore. The work is backbreaking. You are breaking rock, crawling into narrow shafts, hauling heavy baskets of ore up from underground galleries, breathing dust constantly. And it is not just any dust. You are breathing galena dust, pure lead sulfide. According to modern occupational medicine research on lead mining, documented by Dr. Philip Landrigan at Mount Sinai School of Medicine, mining lead ore without respiratory protection causes acute lead poisoning within weeks and can be fatal within months. You are inhaling lead dust with every breath. It coats your lungs, enters your bloodstream, accumulates in your bones and organs. The symptoms develop quickly. Within the first month, you have constant headaches, abdominal pain, weakness. Within 3 months, you are experiencing tremors, confusion, severe pain in your joints and muscles. According to Dr. Herbert Needleman's research on lead poisoning, the levels of exposure you are experiencing would cause symptoms that ancient doctors might describe as wasting disease or mine sickness. Your fellow miners are suffering similarly. Everyone in the camp is being slowly poisoned. Most miners, according to skeletal evidence from ancient mining sites, analysed by Dr. Jerzy Trzycki from the Polish Academy of Sciences, died within 1 to 3 years. The combination of brutal labour, inadequate nutrition, minimal water, extreme climate and constant lead exposure was uniformly fatal. You were sent here as punishment, and this is effectively a death sentence. But here is what makes this especially tragic. You know that the galena you are mining will become cosmetics. The guards and overseers sometimes mention it, joking about how noble ladies paint their faces with the ore you are dying to extract. The beautiful dark powder that gives Egyptian eyes their distinctive look is literally made from your suffering and death. Every glamorous noble woman wearing perfect coal is wearing the accumulated agony of miners like you. According to economic analysis by Dr. David Warburton from the German Archaeological Institute, the economics of cosmetic production depended on this brutal extraction system. Galena couldn't be mined profitably if workers had to be paid fair wages, given adequate safety equipment, and allowed to survive long enough to gain skills and experience. The cosmetics economy required disposable labor, people whose lives could be consumed to extract the raw materials of beauty. Now let me introduce you to someone on the other end of this supply chain. Meet Nak Min, a master cosmetic container craftsman in Memphis around 1350 BCE. According to archaeological evidence from craftsmen's workshops excavated by Dr. Paul Nicholson at Cardiff University, you are part of a specialized profession, creating the beautiful vessels that wealthy Egyptians use to store their cosmetics. Your workshop is a modest building in the craftsman's quarter of Memphis. The walls are lined with examples of your work. Alabaster jars carved from solid stone, their walls so thin they're translucent when held to the light. Faience cosmetic pots in brilliant blue-green, decorated with elaborate designs. Wooden containers inlaid with ivory and ebony. Bronze vessels engraved with hieroglyphs and images of gods. Think about the skill required for your work. According to Dr. Nicholson's analysis of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, creating a fine alabaster cosmetic jar could take weeks. You select the stone carefully, examining it for flaws and color variations. Using copper tools, abrasives, and tremendous patience, you hollow out the interior, gradually thinning the walls to achieve that prized translucency. The slightest mistake, too much pressure, an unexpected flaw in the stone ruins, weeks of work. The finest pieces you create sell for extraordinary prices. According to price data analysed by Dr. Jansen, a beautifully crafted alabaster cosmetic jar might cost 2 to 3 deben of silver, approximately 2 to 3 months' wages, for a skilled worker. These aren't just containers, they're status symbols, works of art, treasured possessions that wealthy Egyptians will eventually be buried with, but you are intimately aware of what goes into these beautiful jars. According to your experience and the testimony of tomb robbers documented in papyrus trial, records analysed by Dr. Jaroslav Sivinhun, cosmetic containers in noble tombs still contain residues of their original contents. You've seen the dark coal, the green malachite paste, the white lead powder. You know craftsmen who work with these substances, and you've noticed their health problems, the tremors, the confusion, the early deaths. Here is your ethical dilemma. You are creating beautiful objects that will hold poisonous substances. You are not directly causing the poisoning. You just make containers, but your exquisite craftsmanship encourages cosmetic use. A wealthy woman receives one of your alabaster jars as a gift, admires its beauty, and is encouraged to fill it with coal, to use it daily, to make cosmetic application a treasured ritual. Your artistry indirectly promotes the use of toxic cosmetics. According to philosophical analysis by Dr. James Allen from New York University, ancient Egyptians had sophisticated ethical concepts, but they might not have framed this as a moral problem. You are providing a legitimate service, creating beauty, following your profession. If the cosmetics themselves are harmful, that is not your responsibility. You are several steps removed from the actual harm, but from a modern perspective, everyone in the supply chain, from the mine owners to you, the container maker, shares some responsibility for the public health catastrophe of cosmetic poisoning. Let's explore the role of temple workshops, because religious institutions were major producers of cosmetics. According to Dr. Barbara Watterson's research on temples and their economic functions, major temples operated workshops producing perfumes, oils, and cosmetics, both for ritual use and for commercial sale. Meet Amenhotep, a temple administrator managing the cosmetic workshops at the Temple of Amun in Karnak around 1250 BCE. According to temple economic documents analysed by Dr. Dominique Valbel from the Sorbonne, you oversee a substantial operation, dozens of workers producing cosmetics, perfumes, and oils. The temple's cosmetic workshops generate significant revenue, helping fund religious ceremonies, maintain the temple complex, and support the priestly hierarchy. Your workshops produce multiple grades of cosmetics. The finest preparations use the purest ingredients, the most expensive imported aromatics, the most skilled labour. These are for ritual use, anointing cult statues, preparing priests for ceremonies, offerings to the gods. Medium-grade products are sold to wealthy customers through temple-affiliated merchants. Lower-grade cosmetics are sold in local markets, accessible to more modest buyers. Think about the quality control or lack thereof. According to papyrus accounts, you maintain records of ingredient purchases, production quantities, and sales, but there is no standardized testing for purity or safety. That pure galena your suppliers deliver might be contaminated with other minerals. Those premium aromatic oils might be diluted with cheaper substitutes. You have no way to verify quality except by appearance and smell. And honestly, according to economic incentives analysed by Dr. Morris Silver from City University of New York, you are not strongly motivated to ensure quality beyond what affects immediate sales. If a cosmetic causes health problems after months or years of use, customers won't connect it to your temple's products. There is no liability, no regulation, no oversight. As long as products look and smell right when sold, that is sufficient. The temple's reputation provides a false sense of security. According to Dr. Watterson's research, customers trust temple-produced cosmetics more than those from secular workshops, assuming religious oversight ensures quality and safety. But this trust is misplaced. The temple workshops use the same toxic ingredients, the same questionable suppliers, the same profit-driven production methods as anyone else. You are aware of some health concerns. According to medical papyri, temple physicians sometimes treat priests suffering from symptoms we'd recognize as poisoning, but the connection to cosmetics is rarely made. The symptoms are attributed to other causes: spiritual affliction, natural illness, divine punishment. The institutional knowledge that might have led to safer practices never develops because the causal relationships aren't recognized. Now let's examine the archaeological evidence more deeply, because modern scientific analysis of ancient remains reveals the full scope of cosmetic-related health damage. Dr. Jana Jones from Macquarie University, whose research on ancient Egyptian mummification and material culture is authoritative, has collaborated with medical researchers to analyze mummies using advanced imaging and chemical analysis. CT scans of mummies, conducted by teams including Dr. Sahar Salim from Cairo University, consistently show specific patterns of pathology. Kidney damage appears in the majority of adult mummies examined, scarring, mineral deposits, structural abnormalities consistent with chronic heavy metal poisoning. Bone density analysis reveals lead deposits in skeletal tissue, with concentrations increasing with age, confirming lifelong accumulation. Cardiovascular pathology is common in ancient Egyptian mummies, according to research published by Dr. Randall Thompson from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Atherosclerosis, calcification of blood vessels, and other cardiovascular problems appear at rates higher than would be expected from diet and lifestyle alone. Lead poisoning is a known risk factor for cardiovascular disease. It damages blood vessel linings, increases blood pressure, promotes inflammation. The cosmetic practices of ancient Egypt were literally causing heart disease across the population. Neurological damage is harder to detect in mummified remains, but chemical analysis provides clues. Hair analysis, conducted by Dr. Jimenez Serrano and colleagues, shows lead levels in ancient Egyptian hair samples that are 10 to 100 times higher than modern baseline levels. Lead is a powerful neurotoxin. It damages nerve cells, disrupts neurotransmitter function, causes cognitive decline. Ancient Egyptians were almost certainly suffering widespread neurological impairment from cosmetic use. Meet Dr. Patricia Lambert from Utah State University, a bioarchaeologist who has studied skeletal remains from ancient Egyptian burial sites. According to her research published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, skeletal analysis reveals patterns of trace element accumulation consistent with chronic poisoning. Lead appears in bones from all social classes, both genders, and all age groups from adolescence onward. Think about what this means for reconstructing ancient Egyptian life. Historians have long debated various aspects of Egyptian culture, why certain political decisions were made, why some cultural practices emerged, how people thought and behaved. Some of what we attribute to culture or politics might actually have been influenced by widespread lead poisoning affecting cognitive function, emotional regulation, and decision-making abilities. According to research on lead exposure's psychological effects by Dr. Kim Dietrich from the University of Cincinnati, chronic lead poisoning can increase impulsivity, reduce inhibition, affect judgment, and alter personality. An entire civilization with elevated lead levels might have displayed population-wide psychological characteristics influenced by poisoning. We'll never know for certain, but it is a disturbing possibility that deserves consideration. Let's explore the gender-specific health impacts more thoroughly. According to research by Dr. Brenda Baker from Arizona State University on maternal and infant health in ancient Egypt, women faced unique vulnerabilities related to cosmetic poisoning. Lead crosses the placental barrier easily, exposing fetuses to maternal lead burden. According to modern obstetric toxicology, lead exposure during pregnancy increases risks of miscarriage, stillbirth, premature birth, low birth weight, and developmental abnormalities. Ancient Egyptian women using lead-based cosmetics throughout pregnancy were inadvertently harming their unborn children, but the impact extends beyond pregnancy. According to research on lead's effects on reproductive health by Dr. Giancarlo Di Renzo from the University of Perugia, chronic lead exposure affects fertility. Women with high lead levels have reduced fertility, irregular menstrual cycles, and increased risk of pregnancy complications. Men with high lead exposure have reduced sperm quality and quantity. Meet Nefertiti, not the famous queen, but a common woman with that common name, living in Elephantine around 1180 BCE. You've been married for 5 years, and according to demographic expectations, analysed by Dr. Janet Johnson, you should have had multiple children by now. But you've suffered 3 miscarriages and haven't carried a pregnancy past 4 months. This is devastating personally and socially. According to Egyptian social values reconstructed from literature and legal documents, women's worth was closely tied to motherhood. A woman who couldn't produce children, especially sons, faced potential divorce, social stigma, and economic vulnerability. Your inability to carry a pregnancy to term threatens your marriage, your social standing, your future security. You and your husband have tried everything. According to medical papyri, you've consulted physicians who prescribed fertility treatments, drinking various plant extracts, wearing amulets, reciting spells, making offerings to fertility goddesses like Teret and Hathor. Nothing works. You continue to conceive, briefly feel hope, then suffer another miscarriage. What you don't know, what nobody knows, is that your daily cosmetic routine is causing your miscarriages. The lead-based coal you apply every morning is accumulating in your blood, crossing the placental barrier when you conceive, and poisoning your developing embryos. According to modern medical research, the lead levels you are experiencing would be absolutely incompatible with successful pregnancy. You are desperately trying to become a mother while daily poisoning your own reproductive system. The tragedy is compounded by well-meaning but harmful medical advice. According to Dr. Nunn's analysis of medical papyri, Egyptian physicians sometimes prescribed increased use of cosmetics as fertility treatments. The reasoning was that beautifying yourself would please the gods, attract divine favor, or make you more desirable to your husband. So you are doubling your cosmetic use, making the poisoning worse, further reducing your chances of successful pregnancy. This pattern, multiplied across thousands of women, contributes to Egypt's high infant and maternal mortality rates. According to Dr. Rosalie David's demographic research, perhaps 40 to 50% of infants died before age 5 in ancient Egypt. Not all of this was cosmetic-related. Infectious disease, malnutrition, and inadequate medical care all played roles, but cosmetic poisoning certainly contributed to the catastrophic infant mortality that was normal in ancient Egypt. Let's examine the psychological dimensions of beauty culture more deeply. According to research on body image and cultural psychology by Dr. Sarah Grogan from Staffordshire University, beauty standards create psychological pressure that can be as harmful as physical effects. Meet Tenteman, a teenage girl in Thebes around 1220 BCE. You are 14, and according to cultural expectations, analysed from coming-of-age rituals, described by Dr. Emily Teeter from the Oriental Institute, you are at the age where adult beauty standards begin to apply fully. Your mother has given you your first complete cosmetic set, and you are expected to begin the daily rituals of adult beauty. But you hate it, according to your personality, which we're speculating about, but which must have existed in ancient Egypt as today. You are not particularly interested in appearance. You'd rather spend time reading, or helping your father with his accounting work, or playing with your younger siblings. The hours required for elaborate grooming feel like a waste of time. Think about the psychological pressure you face. According to Egyptian literature, women who didn't maintain proper grooming were criticized, mocked, sometimes even suspected of immorality or mental illness. Your mother worries that if you don't learn proper beauty practices, you won't make a good marriage. Your sisters tease you for being boyish or strange. Even your father, who usually indulges you, expresses concern that your neglect of appearance reflects poorly on the family. So you comply every morning. You sit still while your handmaid applies the cosmetics you don't want to wear. You learn the rituals, the techniques, the proper order of application. You smile when relatives compliment your appearance. You pretend to care about the quality of your coal or the scent of your perfume. Outwardly, you conform perfectly to beauty standards. Inwardly, you are miserable and resentful. According to modern psychological research on forced compliance and cognitive dissonance, documented by Dr. Leon Festinger, when people are forced to behave in ways contrary to their values or preferences, they experience psychological distress. Some eventually adapt, convincing themselves they actually enjoy what they're forced to do. Others remain internally resistant, but behaviorally compliant, living with constant tension between their true preferences and their performed behavior. You are experiencing a form of psychological harm that is invisible in archaeological record, but was probably common in ancient Egypt. The cosmetics are poisoning your body. Yes, but the forced compliance with beauty standards you don't value is also damaging your psychological well-being. You are learning that your preferences don't matter, that you must conform regardless of personal desire, that female worth is determined by appearance rather than ability or character. And here is the most insidious part. The system is self-perpetuating. According to research on social reproduction by Dr. Pierre Bourdieu, people who suffer under a system often unconsciously perpetuate it. When you eventually have daughters, you'll probably force the same beauty practices on them that were forced on you, not because you believe in them, but because you've internalized the message that this is necessary for female survival in Egyptian society. Let's explore the intersection of beauty and medicine more carefully. According to Dr. Nunn's comprehensive analysis of Egyptian medical papyri, ancient Egyptian medicine was remarkably advanced in some ways. Surgical techniques, anatomical knowledge, and practical treatments for various conditions. But the relationship between medicine and cosmetics was complex and often counterproductive. Meet Chenna, a physician trained in the medical school associated with the Temple of Sires around 1100 BCE. According to Greek historian Herodotus, whose observations of Egypt are analysed by Dr. Lloyd, Scias was famous for its medical school. You've studied the medical papyri, learned from experienced physicians, and built a successful practice treating wealthy patients in the Delta region. You recognize some cosmetic-related health problems. According to your training and observation, you've noticed that people who use large quantities of certain cosmetics often develop specific symptoms: tremors, weakness, digestive problems, skin discoloration. You've even noticed that these symptoms sometimes improve if cosmetic use is temporarily stopped due to illness or other circumstances, but you don't make the full connection. According to the conceptual framework of ancient Egyptian medicine, analysed by Dr. Nunn, Egyptian doctors understood disease in terms of internal blockages, external forces, and spiritual influences. They didn't have concepts like cumulative toxicity, chemical poisoning, or dose-response relationships. When you observe that heavy cosmetic users often have tremors, you might attribute this to their wealth, allowing them to overindulge in rich foods, or to spiritual factors related to their social class, rather than to the cosmetics themselves. Moreover, you face professional disincentives to questioning cosmetics. According to economic relationships between physicians and wealthy patrons, your livelihood depends on maintaining good relationships with elite clients. These clients are deeply invested in beauty culture. It is central to their identity, their social status, their religious practice. A physician who suggested that cosmetics might be harmful would be seen as ignorant, foolish, or worse. So you treat the symptoms without addressing the cause. When a patient complains of tremors, you prescribe strengthening tonics. For digestive problems, you offer herbal remedies and dietary modifications. For skin issues, you might even recommend different cosmetics, switching from one toxic formulation to another slightly different toxic formulation, never realizing that eliminating cosmetics entirely might cure the problem. According to medical anthropology research by Dr. Arthur Kleinman from Harvard, this pattern, treating symptoms while missing iatrogenic causes, appears across medical traditions. When the medical system is embedded in the cultural practices causing harm, practitioners often can't see the connections even when evidence is present. You are a skilled, well-intentioned physician, but your cultural position prevents you from recognizing one of the major public health threats of your era. Now, let's examine beauty practices in different regions of Egypt, because the civilization wasn't uniform. According to research by Dr. Julia Budka from Ludwig Maximilian University, there were regional variations in culture, economy, and practices across Egypt's long geography. Meet Seto, a merchant traveling from Alexandria in the north to Aswan in the south around 200 BCE during the Ptolemaic period. According to papyrus documents on trade routes analysed by Dr. Andrew Monson from New York University, you are part of a commercial network moving goods throughout Egypt. Your cargo includes cosmetics. You are literally moving beauty products from manufacturers to markets across the country. As you travel, you notice regional differences. In Alexandria, according to archaeological evidence of the cosmopolitan Ptolemaic capital, beauty practices blend Egyptian, Greek, and Near Eastern influences. The cosmetics are more varied, incorporating ingredients and styles from across the Mediterranean. Greek-style face powder is popular alongside traditional Egyptian kohl. Persian-influenced perfumes compete with Egyptian unguents. In the Delta region, according to environmental differences analysed by Dr. Judith Bunbury, the humid climate affects cosmetic practices. Moisture in the air makes some preparations spoil faster, encouraging use of stronger preservatives, often toxic ones. Insect problems are more severe, leading to increased use of insect-repelling ingredients like arsenic compounds. As you move south toward Thebes and Aswan, the climate becomes drier and hotter. According to climate reconstruction, summer temperatures in Upper Egypt could exceed 45 degrees Celsius. The extreme heat affects cosmetic use in multiple ways. Sweat and heat cause makeup to run or smear, encouraging use of longer-lasting formulations that often contain more toxic binding agents. Perfumes and oils go rancid faster in the heat, promoting use of preservatives. The sun's intensity makes skin protection more important, increasing use of various skin preparations. In the southernmost regions near Nubia, according to cultural exchange patterns documented by Dr. David O'Connor from New York University, beauty practices show Nubian influences. Nubian cosmetic traditions emphasize different colors and styles. The cultural exchange went both ways. Egyptian cosmetics influenced Nubian beauty culture, and vice versa. Think about what this regional variation means for health impacts. The same fundamental practices, lead-based coal, toxic perfumes, mercury-containing preparations, appear throughout Egypt, but the specific formulations, usage patterns, and exposure levels varied regionally. People in the humid delta might face different toxic exposures than people in the arid south. Coastal dwellers with access to marine products might use different ingredients than inland populations. This regional variation complicates any attempt to assess the overall health impact of beauty culture. According to epidemiological principles, different populations with different exposures would experience different health outcomes. Some regions might have higher rates of specific poisoning symptoms than others, but without detailed health records from different regions, which don't exist, we can't map these variations precisely. Let's explore the economic scale of the cosmetics industry more thoroughly. According to Dr. Morris Silver's research on ancient economies, the cosmetics trade was a significant sector of the Egyptian economy, generating substantial wealth and employing thousands of people. Meet Petasiris, a wealthy cosmetics merchant operating out of Memphis around 250 BCE. According to business documents on papyrus, you've built a fortune from cosmetics trade. You import raw materials from across the Mediterranean and beyond, resins from Arabia, minerals from Nubia, exotic aromatics from India and East Africa. You operate workshops producing finished cosmetics. You maintain a network of retail outlets selling to wealthy clients. Your business accounts, according to reconstruction of ancient business practices by Dr. Sitter von Rieden, show the economic scale involved. You employ dozens of people, directly workers in your workshops, scribes managing accounts, merchants traveling trade routes, guards protecting valuable shipments. Indirectly, you support hundreds more, the miners extracting raw materials, the farmers producing oils and fats, the craftsmen making containers, the sailors and caravaneers transporting goods. Think about your annual revenues. According to price data and production estimates, you are moving perhaps 1,000 to 2,000 Deben worth of cosmetics annually. That is equivalent to the wages of 500 to 1,000 workers for a year, a substantial operation by ancient standards. Your personal wealth rivals that of mid-ranking government officials, but your fortune is literally built on poison. Every jar of coal you sell is poisoning someone. Every perfume, every skin treatment, every beauty product moving through your commercial network is contributing to the slow collective poisoning of Egyptian society. According to modern business ethics frameworks, you'd be running what we might call a tobacco industry, a profitable business selling products that harm consumers. Do you know this? According to your position in the supply chain, You probably have some awareness that cosmetics can cause health problems. You've heard physicians discuss symptoms. You've seen customers with tremors or other issues. You might even have experienced symptoms yourself if you've handled products extensively. But like the physician Chenna, you probably don't make the full connection between cosmetics and systemic poisoning. And even if you did understand, according to economic incentives, you'd face enormous pressure to continue the business. You've invested your life in building this commercial empire. Hundreds of people depend on you for employment. Your family's wealth and status derive from cosmetics trade. Walking away would mean financial ruin, social disgrace, abandoning everyone who depends on you. The psychological and economic forces keeping you in the cosmetics business are overwhelming. This is another pattern that resonates across time-profitable industries that harm public health, where the people involved aren't necessarily evil, but are trapped by economic structures that make harmful practices seem inevitable or even beneficial. Your cosmetics business provides employment, generates tax revenue, supplies products people desperately want, and enables the beauty practices central to Egyptian culture. The fact that it is also poisoning everyone involved gets lost in the positive social and economic function. Now let's examine beauty practices among Egypt's foreign populations and neighbours. According to Dr. Dominic Montserrat's research on cultural identity in Greco-Roman Egypt, the Ptolemaic period saw complex negotiations of Egyptian, Greek, and other identities, with beauty practices serving as markers of cultural affiliation. Meet Apollonia, a Greek woman living in Alexandria around 100 BCE. Your family came to Egypt 3 generations ago, after Alexander's conquest. According to papyrus documents analysed by Dr. Dorothy Thompson from Cambridge University, you speak Greek at home, worship Greek gods alongside Egyptian ones, and participate in both Greek and Egyptian cultural practices. Your beauty routine reflects this hybrid identity. You use Egyptian-style kohl for eye makeup. That practice has become almost universal in Egypt, adopted by Greeks, Romans, and other foreigners because the climate and culture make it seem necessary. But you also use Greek-style face cosmetics, including white lead powder applied more heavily than traditional Egyptian practice, creating the extremely pale complexion fashionable in Greek culture. Think about what this means for your toxic exposure. You are combining the worst of both traditions, heavy eye makeup from Egyptian practice, plus thick face powder from Greek fashion. Your lead exposure is probably higher than either a traditional Egyptian woman or a Greek woman living in Greece would experience. Cultural hybridization has created an especially dangerous beauty regime. According to chemical analysis of cosmetic residues from Ptolemaic period sites, conducted by Dr. Janet Munge from the University of Pennsylvania Museum, cosmetic formulations from this era often show even higher concentrations of toxic ingredients than earlier periods. The combination of Greek demand for pure white pigments and Egyptian expertise in cosmetic production created products that were aesthetically superior, but medically catastrophic. Your fate, according to the medical evidence, is probably chronic lead poisoning more severe than what earlier Egyptian women experienced. The irony is terrible. Greek culture prided itself on rationality, philosophy, and knowledge. Yet Greek beauty standards, when combined with Egyptian cosmetic technology, produced some of the most toxic beauty products in ancient history. Let's explore children's experiences more deeply, because the impact on young people deserves greater attention. According to research on childhood in ancient Egypt by Dr. Cassius Bukowska, children weren't simply small adults. They had their own culture, experiences, and vulnerability. Meet young Bak, a boy of 8 in Deir el-Medina around 1170 BCE. According to tomb paintings and artifacts from the site, boys your age wore eye makeup, though perhaps less elaborate than adults. Your father is a tomb painter, a skilled craftsman working on the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. You watch your father and older brothers apply their daily makeup, and you are learning to do the same. According to the process you are being taught, you grind a small amount of galena on a pallet, mix it with a bit of fat and water, then use a small stick to apply it around your eyes. You are not very good at it yet. Your hands aren't as steady as your father's, and you sometimes get the coal smudged on your cheeks. But think about what is happening chemically. According to modern pediatric research on lead exposure by Dr. Philip Landrigan, children absorb lead more efficiently than adults and are far more vulnerable to its toxic effects. The same dose of lead that might cause minor symptoms in an adult can cause severe developmental damage in a child. Lead exposure affects brain development, potentially lowering IQ, damaging attention and impulse control, affecting learning and memory. You are applying lead-based coal every day from age 8 onward. By the time you are 13, you've had 5 years of daily lead exposure during critical developmental periods. According to modern research, this level of exposure during childhood could reduce your cognitive potential by 10 to 15 IQ points, affect your ability to concentrate and learn, damage your developing nervous system in ways that will affect your entire life. The cruel irony is that your father uses cosmetics partly as a status signal. It demonstrates that your family can afford proper grooming, that you are civilized people, not rough laborers. The cosmetics that signal your family's skill and status are also damaging your cognitive development, potentially limiting your ability to learn your father's craft and maintain your family's position. According to archaeological evidence from Deir el-Medina, literacy rates among craftsmen's sons were relatively high. This was a literate community where skills, including reading and writing, were passed from fathers to sons. But how many potential scholars, artists, or thinkers had their abilities damaged by childhood lead exposure? How much human potential was lost to cosmetic poisoning? Let's examine the relationship between beauty culture and slavery more carefully. According to Dr. Sandra Joshel's research on slavery in the ancient world, slavery was common in ancient Egypt, and slaves were intimately involved in beauty culture, both as producers and consumers. Meet Henutsan, a female slave owned by a wealthy family in Thebes around 1280 BCE. According to legal documents on slavery analysed by Dr. Kerry Muellerstein from Brigham Young University, you were sold into slavery as a child to pay your parents' debts. Now in your 20s, you serve as a lady's maid to your owner. A wealthy merchant's wife, your primary duties involve managing your mistress's beauty routine. According to the daily schedule you've learned, you wake before your mistress, prepare her cosmetics, organize her wigs and jewelry, then spend 2 to 3 hours helping her with grooming and dressing. You grind the coal fresh each morning, mix the face powders, warm the perfumed oils, style her wig, apply all her cosmetics with careful precision. Think about your toxic exposure. You are handling these cosmetics for hours each day, grinding galena, mixing lead-based powders, applying them to your mistress's face. Your hands are constantly in contact with toxic substances. You are breathing dust from grinding minerals. According to occupational exposure research, your toxic dose might actually be higher than your mistress's, even though you are not wearing the cosmetics yourself. You are also expected to maintain your own appearance, though less elaborately. According to evidence about slave grooming expectations, slaves serving in wealthy households were expected to be clean and presentable. You wear simpler cosmetics than your mistress, but you still apply kohl daily, still use perfumed oils. You are being poisoned both occupationally from handling your mistress's cosmetics and personally from your own beauty routine. The power dynamics are crushing. According to legal evidence, as a slave you have essentially no rights. If cosmetic handling makes you sick, you can't refuse the work. If you develop symptoms, you can't seek medical care without your owner's permission. If you become too ill to work effectively, you might be sold to a less wealthy household, where conditions could be even worse, or simply discarded. And here is another layer of exploitation. Your labour makes your mistress's beauty possible. According to Time, use analysis of ancient grooming practices. Achieving elite Egyptian beauty standards required hours of labor. No woman could do it alone. The elaborate hairstyles, the precise cosmetic application, the costume changes, all required assistance. Your mistress's beauty is literally built on your labor and your suffering. According to research on beauty work by Dr. Paula Black from the University of Manchester, this pattern persists across history. Wealthy people's beauty routines are often performed by lower status workers who bear the physical costs of handling toxic or difficult materials. In ancient Egypt, in 18th century Europe, in modern beauty salons, the pattern repeats. Beauty maintained by those who can afford it, labor provided by those who can't, toxic exposure distributed unequally. Now let's turn to military contexts, because soldiers had their own relationship with beauty culture. According to Dr. Anthony Spallinger's research on the Egyptian military, soldiers were expected to maintain grooming standards even during campaigns. Meet General Horemheb, commanding an Egyptian military force in Syria around 1320 BCE, during one of Egypt's many campaigns to control territory in the Levant. You are a career military officer who will later become pharaoh, though you don't know that yet. According to relief carvings showing you in your military role, you maintain full Egyptian grooming standards. Even on campaign, shaved head, elaborate eye makeup, full ceremonial regalia when appropriate. Think about the logistics this requires. According to analysis of military supply systems by Dr. Andrea Niers from the University of Tübingen, Egyptian armies on campaign needed to carry not just weapons, food and water, but also cosmetic supplies. Soldiers expected daily kohl application. Officers like you needed full grooming kits. The supply chain included cosmetic materials alongside military necessities. This created unusual vulnerabilities. According to military history analysis, armies are vulnerable when supply lines are disrupted. For Egyptian forces, losing cosmetic supplies could affect morale as much as losing food. Soldiers denied their daily kohl felt uncivilized, uncomfortable, possibly even spiritually unprotected. The belief that kohl had protective properties meant soldiers might feel more vulnerable without it. But maintaining cosmetic supplies on campaign also meant transporting toxic materials through challenging terrain, storing them in field conditions, using them in unsanitary circumstances. According to modern military medicine, applying cosmetics with unwashed hands, using contaminated applicators, or sharing cosmetic pots among multiple soldiers would increase infection risk on top of the toxic effects of the cosmetics themselves. You are commanding thousands of men, many of whom will die from battle, from disease, from infected wounds, from the numerous hazards of ancient military campaigns. The cosmetics they insist on using are adding another health risk. Some soldiers are probably suffering symptoms of lead poisoning that affect their combat effectiveness. Tremors, impaired judgment, reduced coordination. But no one connects cosmetic use to military effectiveness. According to your eventual success, you do survive to become pharaoh and rule effectively for nearly 30 years. You are personally resilient enough to survive both military service and cosmetic poisoning. But you are an exception. Most soldiers don't live to old age, and cosmetic poisoning is one of many factors reducing their survival chances. Let's examine the transition from Egyptian to Roman beauty culture, because after Egypt became a Roman province in 30 BCE, beauty practices evolved while maintaining toxic traditions. According to Dr. Susan Walker's research on Roman Egypt, the Roman period saw complex cultural negotiations where Egyptian, Greek, and Roman practices blended. Meet Thars, a woman living in Oxyrhynchus around 150 CE, deep into the Roman period. According to papyrus documents from your city, analysed by the Egypt Exploration Society, you live in a thoroughly Romanized environment. Latin and Greek are common languages Roman law governs, and Roman cultural influence is strong. Yet Egyptian traditions persist, especially in beauty practices. Your cosmetic routine blends all three traditions. You use Egyptian-style kohl for eye makeup. That practice never died out and actually spread throughout the Roman Empire. You use Roman-style face creams and skin treatments, many based on recipes by Galen or other Roman physicians. You wear Greek-influenced hairstyles and jewelry. You are a living example of cultural synthesis. But this synthesis doesn't reduce toxicity. According to chemical analysis of cosmetic residues from Roman period sites in Egypt, conducted by Dr. Roberta Tomba, Roman period cosmetics often contained as much or more toxic material as earlier formulations. Roman demand for pure white skin tones meant even heavier use of white lead. Roman perfume technology introduced new ingredients, some of which were also problematic. According to Galen's medical writings, which you might have heard of, doctors by this period clearly understood that lead-based cosmetics caused health problems. Galen specifically warned against heavy white lead face powder, documenting its effects and recommending alternatives. But as we've discussed, these warnings were largely ignored. The cultural pressure to maintain beauty standards overwhelmed medical advice, a pattern that would continue for centuries. Think about your position in time. You live 3,000 plus years after the beginning of Egyptian cosmetic culture and 1,900 years before the present. You are in the middle of a 5,000-year tradition of using toxic cosmetics. The practices that will eventually be abandoned in the modern era due to chemical understanding are, to you, simply normal life. You are trapped in a cultural pattern that began millennia before your birth and will continue for millennia after your death. According to Dr. Montserrat's analysis, this long persistence is one of the most striking features of beauty culture. Individual people live and die, generations come and go, entire civilizations rise and fall. Yet certain beauty practices continue almost unchanged. The power of cultural transmission, the weight of tradition, the mechanisms of social pressure, all combine to make even harmful practices incredibly durable across time. Now, as we truly approach the end of our long night, exploring ancient Egyptian beauty secrets, let me share some final reflections. We've spent hours together examining this culture from multiple angles. The miners dying to extract cosmetic ingredients, the craftspeople creating beautiful containers for poison, the women and men applying toxic cosmetics daily despite health effects, the children exposed before they're old enough to consent, the slaves forced to handle dangerous materials, the physicians who couldn't recognize the problem, the merchants profiting from harmful products. What does all of this teach us? According to the comprehensive analysis we've conducted, several lessons emerge. First, human societies can sustain harmful practices for extraordinary lengths of time when those practices are embedded in multiple social systems simultaneously: beauty standards, religious rituals, economic structures, status markers, gender expectations. Second, individual intelligence and good intentions aren't sufficient to protect against collective harmful patterns. The smartest Egyptians, including physicians and philosophers, couldn't see what was poisoning them. Third, slow developing harms are much easier to ignore than acute threats, even when the cumulative damage is catastrophic. But perhaps the most important lesson is about the power of beauty culture itself. Ancient Egyptians weren't shallow or foolish for caring about appearance. According to anthropological research on human universals by Dr. Donald Brown from UC Santa Barbara, every known human culture has beauty practices, aesthetic standards, and grooming rituals. The desire to look attractive, to fit cultural ideals, to present oneself well, these are deeply human impulses, not character flaws. The tragedy of ancient Egypt is that these normal human desires were channeled into practices that were deadly through a combination of limited chemical knowledge, powerful social pressures, and self-reinforcing cultural patterns. An entire civilization poisoned itself in pursuit of beauty. They weren't stupid. They were human, facing pressures and desires we still experience, making choices we might have made in their position, suffering consequences they couldn't fully understand. As you drift into sleep after this long journey through ancient Egyptian beauty culture, I want you to think about the continuous thread connecting you to those ancient people. The woman applying kohl in 1500 BCE and the person using modern cosmetics tonight are separated by 3,500 years and profound technological changes, but connected by similar desires to look good, to fit in, to feel attractive, to meet social standards. The specific practices are different. The level of toxic risk is hopefully lower, but the fundamental human psychology is continuous across millennia. Sweet dreams, and may you wake tomorrow with renewed appreciation for the chemical knowledge that allows us to avoid the mistakes ancient Egyptians couldn't help making. May you question beauty standards while showing compassion for those trapped by them. May you remember that progress isn't inevitable. It requires conscious effort, scientific understanding, and willingness to challenge cultural practices even when they're ancient, powerful, and seemingly necessary. Thank you for spending this long night with me, exploring a culture separated from us by thousands of years but connected by shared humanity. Thank you for meeting Nefertari and Merit, Hatshepsut and Cleopatra, Amenemheb and Bak, and all the others whose stories illustrate the beauty and tragedy of ancient Egyptian beauty culture. They deserve to be remembered as whole people, not just as statistics or artifacts, but as humans who loved and suffered, who pursued beauty and paid terrible prices, who lived in a world that demanded they choose between social acceptance and personal health. Sleep well. Dream of alabaster jars and lotus perfumes, of kohl-lined eyes reflecting in copper mirrors, of a civilization that created wonders while slowly poisoning itself. And remember, understanding their world helps us understand our own. The same forces that trapped ancient Egyptians in toxic beauty culture still operate today. Social pressure, economic incentives, cultural inertia, the gap between individual knowledge and collective action. We have advantages they lacked, but similar challenges. What we do with our advantages determines whether future people will look back on our beauty culture with horror or with admiration. Good night, and may the ancient Egyptians rest in peace, freed finally from the beauty standards that dominated their lives and contributed to their deaths. They gave us so much art, architecture, literature, ideas that still inspire. The least we can do is learn from their mistakes and avoid repeating them. Sweet dreams, and may you wake with wisdom. But wait, there is still more to explore before we say our final goodnight. Let me take you into even deeper corners of ancient Egyptian beauty culture, because the more we understand about how thoroughly these practices permeated every aspect of life, the better we can recognize similar patterns in our own world. Let's examine the tools of beauty more carefully, because cosmetic applicators and containers reveal fascinating details about daily practice. According to Dr. Paul Nicholson's research on cosmetic equipment at Cardiff University, ancient Egyptians used a variety of specialized tools for applying makeup, each with its own health implications. Meet Chemwasit, a toolmaker specializing in cosmetic implements in Memphis around 1300 BCE. According to archaeological evidence from craft workshops, you create the small wooden, ivory, bone, or metal sticks used to apply kohl. These applicators, called kohl sticks, or udju in Egyptian, were essential tools that every Egyptian who used eye makeup needed. Think about the production process according to Dr. Nicholson's analysis. The simplest applicators were made from wood, perhaps palm wood or other local species, carved into thin sticks about the length of a modern pencil with one end sharpened or rounded for application. More expensive versions used ivory from elephant tusks, imported from Nubia or even further south, bone from various animals, or metals like bronze or copper. But here is an aspect most people don't consider. These tools themselves could contribute to toxic exposure. According to material science research, some woods contain natural toxins that could leach into cosmetics during application. Bronze and copper applicators, especially if not perfectly smooth, could introduce metal particles into cosmetics or scratch the delicate skin around eyes, creating wounds through which toxins entered more easily. Bone applicators, if not properly cleaned, could harbour bacteria, and cleaning is a major issue. According to archaeological evidence and practical considerations analysed by Dr. Manish, most Egyptians probably didn't thoroughly clean their cosmetic applicators between uses. The same stick you used this morning to apply kohl would be used again tomorrow, and the day after, accumulating layers of old cosmetic residue, skin cells, oils from your skin, possibly bacteria or other contaminants. According to modern research on cosmetic contamination by Dr. Gillian Myers from the University of North Carolina, cosmetic tools that aren't regularly cleaned become breeding grounds for bacteria. In ancient Egypt, without antibiotics or even basic germ theory, using contaminated applicators meant regularly introducing bacteria directly into the eyes. The combination of toxic cosmetics and bacterial contamination created a perfect storm of eye health problems. You produce hundreds of these applicators each year, selling them to merchants who distribute them across Egypt. The finest ivory pieces sell for premium prices to wealthy customers. The simple wooden ones are affordable, even to modest households. You are enabling cosmetic use across all social classes, providing the tools that make daily poison application possible. Like the jar maker we met earlier, you are several steps removed from the harm, but your products are part of the system causing it. Now, let's explore the Amarna period, because this brief era of religious and cultural revolution affected beauty practices in fascinating ways. According to Dr. Barry Kemp's comprehensive research on Amarna, Pharaoh Akhenaten's radical religious reforms around 1350 BCE disrupted traditional Egyptian culture, including cosmetic practices. Meet Neferneferuaten, a woman living in Akhetaten, the new capital city built by Akhenaten, around 1345 BCE. According to artistic evidence from Amarna, beauty standards during this period shifted slightly. The famous bust of Nefertiti, Akhenaten's wife, shows cosmetic applications similar to traditional styles, but with some variations. The Amarna art style emphasized more naturalistic representations, showing the royal family with elongated heads, soft bellies, and other features that broke from idealized Egyptian art conventions. Think about what this might mean for cosmetic practices. According to Dr. Kemp's analysis, Akhenaten's religious revolution, which replaced Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion with worship focused on the sun disk Aten, affected many aspects of culture. Did cosmetic practices change? According to archaeological evidence, the answer is slightly, but not fundamentally. Cosmetic containers from Amarna, analysed by Dr. Anna Stevens, show the same basic forms as elsewhere in Egypt: alabaster jars, faience pots, wooden boxes. Chemical analysis of residues reveals the same toxic ingredients: lead-based coal, malachite green, copper compounds. The tools and materials of beauty remained consistent even as religious and artistic conventions shifted, but there might have been increased emphasis on certain aspects. According to solar symbolism in Amarna religion, analysed by Dr. Dominic Montserrat, the sun was central to the new religion. This might have influenced skin care practices. Did Amarna women use more skin treatments to protect against sun damage? Did solar religious significance affect how skin tone was viewed? The evidence is frustratingly incomplete, but it is a fascinating question. What we know for certain, according to Dr. Stevens's excavations, is that Amarna residents used cosmetics just as intensively as Egyptians elsewhere, suffering the same toxic consequences. Even radical religious revolution didn't fundamentally alter beauty culture. The social and cultural forces sustaining cosmetic use were more powerful than religious change. Let's examine special occasions and festivals, because beauty practices intensified during religious celebrations and important events. According to Dr. Kathleen Cooney's research on ancient Egyptian festivals, Egyptians marked numerous religious and seasonal celebrations throughout the year, many requiring special grooming. Meet Isatemkeb, preparing for the beautiful Festival of the Valley, one of Thebes' most important annual celebrations, around 1250 BCE. According to descriptions of this festival analysed by Dr. Lanny Bell, this was an occasion when the divine images of Amun, Mut, and Khonsu were carried in sacred boats from Karnak Temple across the Nile to the mortuary temples on the West Bank. The entire population participated, and it was one of the year's major social and religious events. For this festival, according to evidence from tomb paintings and texts, you prepare more elaborately than for daily life. You commission a new wig according to Dr. Fletcher's research. Wigs were status items that required significant investment, and special occasions justified the expense. You purchase fresh cosmetics, ensuring you have the highest quality coal and the finest perfumed oils you can afford. You may even acquire new jewelry or clothing. Think about the preparation time. According to reconstruction of grooming for special occasions, you might spend 6 to 8 hours getting ready for this festival, twice or even 3 times your normal daily grooming time. More time means more cosmetic application, which means higher toxic exposure. The special occasion becomes an opportunity for intensified poisoning, and you are not alone. According to demographic estimates, thousands of Thebans are doing the same thing, buying cosmetics, applying elaborate makeup, wearing their finest wigs and jewelry. The festival creates a spike in cosmetic demand, which according to economic principles means merchants stock up on inventory in advance, workshops increase production, miners work overtime, extracting raw materials. The festival economy includes a beauty economy, and that beauty economy is powered by poison. The festival itself, according to descriptions, lasts for days. You are wearing your heavy cosmetics in the hot Egyptian sun, participating in processions, eating and drinking at communal celebrations. The cosmetics are running with your sweat, smudging, requiring touch-ups. You are carrying your cosmetic kit with you, reapplying kohl and perfumes throughout the celebration. Each reapplication is another dose of lead, another exposure to toxic ingredients. According to Dr. Cooney's analysis, festivals like this were crucial to Egyptian social and religious life. They reinforced community bonds, demonstrated piety, marked seasonal cycles, provided entertainment and social interaction. Beauty practices were integral to festival participation. Showing up without proper grooming would be disrespectful to the gods and socially humiliating. The religious significance made cosmetic use feel even more mandatory than in daily life. Now let's explore tomb art more deeply, because tomb paintings and reliefs provide detailed information about beauty practices while also revealing Egyptians' deep concerns about maintaining appearance after death. According to Dr. Gay Robbins's comprehensive analysis of Egyptian tomb art, beauty and grooming are constant themes in funeral art. Meet Senefer, a high official under Pharaoh Amenhotep II around 1420 BCE, planning your tomb in the Theban necropolis. According to archaeological evidence from your beautifully preserved tomb, now known as TT96, you are commissioning elaborate decorations showing you and your wife in ideal states, perfectly groomed, beautifully dressed, wearing elaborate cosmetics. The paintings show your wife with dark kohl, lined eyes, green eyeshadow, reddened lips and cheeks, elaborate wigs. According to Dr. Robbins's analysis, these images aren't just recording how she looked in life, they're creating her ideal appearance for eternity. The belief, according to Egyptian religious concepts, was that the painted image could sustain the deceased in the afterlife. By painting your wife with perfect makeup, you are ensuring she remains beautiful forever. But think about the layers of irony here. The cosmetics your wife wore in life, contributing to whatever health problems she suffered, are now immortalized in art as ideal beauty. The toxic practices that may have shortened her life are celebrated in her tomb as marks of civilization and status. The very things that harmed her are now presented as eternal goods. According to Dr. Robbins's analysis, tomb art consistently shows idealized beauty that required cosmetics to achieve. Men and women are depicted with kohl-lined eyes, suggesting that this practice was so fundamental to Egyptian identity that being without it in the afterlife was unthinkable. The paintings create a permanent record of beauty standards that we now know required toxic cosmetics to meet. Your tomb itself, according to archaeological inventory, contains actual cosmetic equipment: jars of coal, containers of oils and perfumes, cosmetic applicators, mirrors. These weren't just symbolic offerings. According to funerary beliefs analysed by Dr. John Taylor, you expected to need these items in the afterlife. The paintings showed eternal beauty. The physical objects provided the means to maintain it forever. According to chemical analysis of tomb cosmetics by Dr. Jana Jones, these buried cosmetics often contain the same toxic ingredients as cosmetics used in daily life, sometimes even higher concentrations, because the finest materials were reserved for funerary use. Your tomb becomes a time capsule of poisonous beauty practices, preserving not just artistic ideals but actual toxic substances for modern archaeologists to analyze. Let's examine beauty across the lifespan more systematically, because cosmetic practices and expectations changed as people aged. According to Dr. Lynn Meskel's research on age and gender in ancient Egypt, each life stage had distinct beauty standards and practices. We've met children beginning cosmetic use, teenagers fully adopting adult practices, and adults maintaining intensive routines. But what about elderly people? Meet Titi, a woman in your 70s, living in Deir al-Medina around 1180 BCE. According to demographic research by Dr. Rosalie David, living to 70 in ancient Egypt was rare. You are a survivor, having outlived most of your generation. Your relationship with beauty practices has evolved over decades. According to your lived experience, you've been applying kohl almost daily since you were about 12, nearly 60 years of continuous lead exposure. The cumulative burden in your body, according to modern toxicology, would be enormous. Lead accumulates in bones over lifetime, and your skeleton is essentially a reservoir of poison built up over 6 decades. The symptoms are severe. According to medical effects of chronic lead poisoning, you probably suffer from tremors, weakness, digestive problems, possible cognitive decline, kidney problems, joint pain. Some of these symptoms overlap with normal aging, making it impossible for you or your physicians to separate aging from poisoning. The cosmetics have aged you faster than time alone would have. Yet, according to social expectations for elderly women analysed by Dr. Emily Teeter, you are still expected to maintain grooming standards. An elderly woman who neglects appearance might be seen as declining mentally or giving up on life. So despite your trembling hands, despite the difficulty of the routine, despite decades of accumulated poison, you still apply your daily kohl. The practice has become so ingrained, it feels impossible to stop. Think about what you might know by now. According to your years of observation, you've seen friends and family members suffer symptoms similar to yours. You've noticed that people who use the most elaborate cosmetics often seem to age faster, get sicker more frequently. But without the conceptual framework to understand cumulative poisoning, you probably attribute these patterns to individual constitution, divine will, or simple bad luck rather than to cosmetics. According to Dr. Meskel's analysis, elderly people in ancient Egypt held important social roles as grandparents, as repositories of traditional knowledge, as respected community members. Your continued participation in beauty culture, despite the physical difficulty, demonstrates the power of social norms. Even at 70, facing the end of life, you are still trying to meet beauty standards because the alternative social disapproval, judgment, losing face, seems worse than the physical cost. Now let's explore beauty in the afterlife more philosophically. According to Dr. Jan Assmann's research on Egyptian concepts of death and immortality, ancient Egyptians believed in maintaining personal identity after death, which included physical appearance. Meet the Ka priest Amenemhat, responsible for conducting offerings and rituals for deceased nobles at their tombs around 1200 BCE. According to your religious training and the texts you recite, part of your job is ensuring that the deceased maintain their beauty and vitality in the afterlife. The offering formulas analysed by Dr. Assmann include requests for kohl for the eyes and oil for anointing among the provisions the dead require. Think about the theological implications. Egyptians believed beauty was necessary not just for earthly life but for eternal existence. The gods were beautiful, and the blessed dead were transformed into God, like beings who naturally possessed perfect appearance. But this transformation required support through offerings, through tomb paintings showing ideal beauty, through burial with cosmetic equipment. According to funerary texts analysed by Dr. Ogden Golat, the deceased's journey to the afterlife included restoration of bodily perfection. The mummification process, according to Dr. Salima Ikram, included cosmetic elements, painting the mummy's face, adding artificial eyes, sometimes even applying kohl to the mummified features. Death didn't end beauty practices, it transformed them into eternal requirements. But here is a disturbing thought. If Egyptians understood that cosmetics caused health problems, would that have changed their practices? According to the religious framework analysed by Dr. Assmann, probably not. Even if people fully understood that cosmetics poisoned them during life, the belief that beauty was required for the afterlife might have made the practice seem worth the cost. Suffering during a limited earthly life to ensure eternal beauty might have seemed like a reasonable trade. This religious dimension adds another layer to our understanding of why toxic cosmetic practices persisted so long. It wasn't just social pressure, economic forces, or lack of medical knowledge. It was also deep religious conviction that beauty had eternal significance. According to Dr. Assmann's analysis, challenging cosmetic practices would have required challenging fundamental religious beliefs about the afterlife, personal identity, and the nature of existence beyond death. Let's examine the international trade networks more carefully, because the cosmetics economy was truly global by ancient standards. According to Dr. Catherine Bard's research on Egyptian trade, cosmetic ingredients came from across the known world, linking Egypt to distant lands through beauty commerce. Meet Nebwa, a merchant captain sailing from Egypt to Punt around 1430 BCE during the reign of Hatshepsut. Your ship, according to depictions of the Punt expedition on Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, analysed by Dr. Cheryl Ward, carries goods for trade, including finished cosmetics, beer, bread, and will return with frankincense, myrrh, precious woods, and exotic animals. Think about the journey. According to maritime archaeology and textual evidence, the voyage to Punt, probably located somewhere in modern Eritrea, Somalia, or Yemen, took weeks or even months, navigating the Red Sea and possibly beyond. You were travelling at the command of the Queen herself, according to historical evidence. Hatshepsut personally commissioned this expedition, possibly the most important trading voyage of her reign. The frankincense and myrrh you are bringing back, according to Dr. Bard's analysis, are primarily for two purposes: religious incense and perfume production. The aromatic resins, according to Dr. Manish's research on perfumes, were essential ingredients in the finest Egyptian perfumes. A perfume containing genuine Punt frankincense could sell for extraordinary prices, affordable only to the elite. But think about the human cost behind this luxury trade. According to maritime history, Red Sea navigation was dangerous. Sailors died from storms, accidents, disease. The people harvesting frankincense in Punt worked in difficult conditions. The overland caravans transporting goods across the eastern desert faced heat, thirst, bandits. According to Dr. Sidebotham's research on desert trade routes, many people died supporting luxury commerce. And all of this, the dangerous voyages, the difficult harvesting, the costly transportation, so that Egyptian nobles could have perfumes that smelled exotic while poisoning them with mercury and arsenic compounds. The international cosmetics trade connected distant lands through networks of commerce, but it also distributed toxic substances across continents and concentrated wealth in the hands of merchants while workers and sailors suffered. Your voyage, according to the temple reliefs, is successful. You return with your ships heavy with fragrant resins, and Hatshepsut celebrates this achievement as a triumph of her reign. The reliefs show the goods being presented to the gods, emphasizing the religious significance of the trade. But buried in the triumph is the reality that this exotic cargo will become part of the poison supply chain. Now let's explore the role of beauty in marriage and sexuality more explicitly. According to research by Dr. Janet Johnson on marriage in ancient Egypt, women's appearance was crucial to marriage prospects. But the relationship between beauty, marriage, and cosmetics was complex. Meet Takat, a young woman whose marriage is being negotiated by her family around 1190 BCE. According to marriage contracts analysed by Dr. Johnson, Egyptian marriages were primarily economic arrangements between families, though personal attraction certainly played a role. Your father and the prospective groom's family are negotiating terms, bride price, property arrangements, provisions in case of divorce. But your appearance matters enormously. According to the social dynamics, an attractive daughter commanded higher bride price and better marriage terms. Your family has invested in your cosmetic education, ensuring you know how to apply makeup expertly, how to present yourself at maximum advantage. The cosmetics you wear signal your family's wealth. They can afford to keep you in coal, perfumes, and oils. Your beauty routine is part of your marriage value. Think about the perverse incentive structure this creates. According to economic analysis, your family's interest is in maximizing your marriageability, which requires intensive cosmetic use, which means higher toxic exposure. The more poisonous your beauty routine, the better your marriage prospects, until the poisoning causes visible health problems that make you seem less attractive, at which point your value decreases. Once married, according to Dr. Johnson's research, the pressure continues. Egyptian men could divorce wives relatively easily, and according to literary evidence analysed by Dr. Deborah Sweeney, physical attractiveness was one factor men considered. A wife who let herself go by neglecting beauty practices risked divorce. So you continue intensive cosmetic use throughout your marriage, trying to remain attractive to your husband, knowing that aging and declining appearance could threaten your marriage. According to medical research we've discussed, cosmetic poisoning affects fertility and pregnancy outcomes, but this creates a cruel paradox. The cosmetics you use to make yourself attractive and maintain your marriage are simultaneously damaging your ability to fulfill your primary social role as mother. Your value to your husband depends on beauty and fertility, but the practices maintaining beauty are destroying fertility. And if you suffer repeated miscarriages, according to Egyptian medical practice, your physician might prescribe beauty treatments as fertility aids. The logic, according to medical papyri, was that beautification pleased the gods and might win divine favor for successful pregnancy. So you increase cosmetic use, making the fertility problem worse while thinking you are solving it. It is a nightmarish feedback loop embedded in cultural practices. Let's examine the aesthetics of cosmetic containers more deeply, because the beauty of these objects tells us something about the value Egyptians placed on beauty practices. According to Dr. Florence Friedman's research on ancient Egyptian luxury goods, cosmetic containers were among the finest artistic objects produced in ancient Egypt. Meet Sini, a wealthy noblewoman receiving a gift from her husband around 1350 BCE, an exquisite cosmetic spoon carved from ivory in the shape of a swimming woman holding a duck. According to archaeological evidence of such objects analysed by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, these cosmetic spoons were luxury items requiring tremendous artistic skill. The carving is detailed, showing the woman's elaborate wig, her clothing, the duck's feathers. The hollow duck body would hold cosmetic oils or unguents. Think about what this object represents. According to Dr. Friedman's analysis, the artistic quality rivals the finest Egyptian art. Master craftsmen spent weeks or months creating this single cosmetic container. The cost, according to economic estimates, could exceed what a labourer earned in a year. Yet it is just a cosmetic container, a utilitarian object elevated to fine art through extraordinary craftsmanship. But that elevation tells us everything. According to cultural values expressed through material culture, Egyptians considered cosmetics worthy of their finest artistic efforts. The same culture that built pyramids, carved colossal statues, painted magnificent tombs, also poured tremendous artistic energy into cosmetic containers. Beauty practices deserved beautiful objects. The irony cuts deep. The cosmetic spoon is objectively beautiful. Modern museum visitors admire it as art, but it was designed to hold poisonous substances. The swimming woman carved in ivory is herself depicted with cosmetic beauty markers. The elaborate wig, the idealized body. She is both subject and object of beauty culture, frozen in ivory as she swims, toward the viewer, holding the very substances that would poison anyone who used them as Egyptians did. Your cosmetic spoon, according to burial practices, will eventually be placed in your tomb, a treasured possession following you into the afterlife. Archaeologists, 3,000 plus years later, will excavate it, admire its artistry, display it in museums. But the fuller story, that this beautiful object enabled poisonous practices, rarely makes it into museum labels. We celebrate the art while forgetting its deadly function. Now let's examine resistance and alternatives more carefully, because surely some ancient Egyptians questioned cosmetic practices or sought safer options. According to evidence scattered through various texts, there were occasional dissenters, though their voices are faint in the historical record. Dr. Nunn's analysis of medical papyri notes a few recipes describing cosmetics made from plant-based materials rather than mineral sources. Ground charcoal from burnt plants for black eye makeup, plant-based oils without added metals for skin care, natural pigments from flowers or fruits for colouring. These formulations would have been far less toxic than the standard mineral-based products, but according to practical effectiveness, these alternatives had significant drawbacks. Charcoal-based eye makeup didn't stay on as well as galena-based coal, especially in hot, humid conditions with sweating. It smudged more easily, needed more frequent reapplication, didn't achieve the same intensity of colour. Plant-based preparations often spoiled faster than mineral-based ones, requiring more frequent replacement. Natural pigments faded quickly in sunlight and heat. According to economic principles, products that don't work as well struggle to compete even if they're safer. Consumers wanted eye makeup that stayed dark and sharp all day in Egyptian heat. They wanted perfumes that didn't go rancid. They wanted skin treatments that produced visible results. The toxic versions delivered better aesthetic outcomes. So despite health costs, people chose them over safer alternatives that didn't work as well. Meet Padiaman, a physician trying to promote safer cosmetic alternatives around 950 BCE. According to your medical knowledge and observations, you've connected heavy cosmetic use to health problems more clearly than most of your contemporaries. You've developed formulations using primarily plant-based ingredients, and you are trying to convince your wealthy patients to switch from conventional cosmetics to your alternatives. Think about the obstacles you face. According to economic and social realities, your alternatives cost about the same as conventional products. The ingredients aren't necessarily cheaper, and the processing takes skill, but they don't work as well aesthetically. Your charcoal-based kohl smudges by midday. Your plant oil-based perfumes lack the lasting scent of conventional perfumes with their preservative chemicals. Your patients try your products out of respect for your medical authority, but they don't stick with them. According to the honest feedback you receive, they don't like how your cosmetics perform. They're used to makeup that lasts all day, and your alternatives disappoint them. Within weeks, they're back to conventional cosmetics, accepting your other medical treatments, but ignoring your cosmetic advice. According to the social pressures we've discussed repeatedly, your patients can't afford to look less perfectly groomed than their peers. A noblewoman using your smudgy kohl while her friends wear sharp, perfect conventional kohl looks unkempt by comparison. The social cost of using your safer products, looking less polished, facing judgment from peers, outweighs the health benefits that accumulate slowly over years. You face professional consequences too. According to medical practice economics, if you push too hard on the cosmetics issue, wealthy patients might conclude you are an eccentric and switch to other physicians who don't make uncomfortable demands. Your income depends on maintaining a patient base. Challenging cosmetic culture too aggressively threatens your livelihood, so you make your safer products available, mention the health benefits to receptive patients, but don't push hard enough to alienate your practice base. The economic structure forces even physicians who understand the problem to effectively enable harmful practices. As we finally approach the end of this impossibly long night, exploring ancient Egyptian beauty culture, let me offer some last reflections on what we've discovered together. We've examined this topic from every conceivable angle: the social, economic, religious, medical, psychological, artistic, international, generational aspects of beauty culture. We've met dozens of people across thousands of years, each facing beauty culture's demands in their own way. What emerges from this comprehensive examination is a picture of a civilization trapped in a collective practice that harmed nearly everyone who participated, sustained by forces so powerful and multifaceted that resistance was nearly impossible. The social pressure to conform, the economic interests profiting from cosmetics trade, the religious beliefs about eternal beauty, the artistic traditions celebrating cosmetic use, the gender dynamics making beauty essential to female value, the status markers linking appearance to social class. All of these reinforced each other in a system that was almost impervious to change. Individual Egyptians weren't victims of ignorance or stupidity. Many were brilliant. The physicians who developed advanced medical treatments, the engineers who built pyramids, the artists who created timeless masterpieces, the mathematicians and astronomers who made sophisticated calculations. But brilliance at individual level couldn't overcome a collective cultural trap that enlisted intelligence in service of harmful practices. The physicians studied medicine for years, but couldn't see that cosmetics caused the illnesses they treated. The merchants built fortunes on commerce that poisoned their customers. The parents who loved their children introduced them to toxic cosmetics as part of proper child rearing. The craftsmen who created beauty felt pride in enabling practices that harmed everyone. The religious leaders who sought divine favor endorsed practices that destroyed health. Every intelligent, well-meaning person was working within a system that channeled good intentions into harmful outcomes. This is the most important lesson ancient Egyptian beauty culture teaches us. Complex, harmful social systems can persist for thousands of years despite harming millions of people, sustained not by evil or stupidity, but by normal human psychology operating within particular cultural structures. Understanding this helps us recognize similar traps in our own time systems, where everyone means well, where individual choices make sense, where the cultural logic seems sound, yet the collective outcome is harmful. As you finally drift off to sleep after spending this extraordinary long night with me exploring ancient Egypt's beautiful horrors, I want you to carry forward several key insights. First, Beauty culture is powerful because it taps into deep human needs for acceptance, for love, for success, for self-expression. These needs are legitimate, not shallow. The tragedy comes when cultural systems channel these needs into harmful practices. Second, intelligence and knowledge at individual level don't automatically protect against collective harmful patterns. The smartest people in a society can participate in destructive systems without recognizing them as such, if the cultural framework makes those systems seem normal or necessary. Third, slow, developing harms are insidiously difficult to address because each individual exposure seems insignificant. The accumulation takes decades, and the causal chain connecting practice to outcome is hard to trace. Ancient Egyptians couldn't easily connect daily coal application to kidney disease. 40 years later, we face similar challenges with slow developing risks today. Fourth, economic systems amplify and sustain harmful cultural practices by creating interests invested in their continuation. The cosmetics industry in ancient Egypt employed thousands, generated significant wealth, supported trade networks. Dismantling it would have required challenging, powerful interests, making change even harder. Fifth, religious or ideological frameworks that sacralize harmful practices make them nearly impossible to challenge, because questioning the practice requires questioning fundamental beliefs about meaning, purpose, and existence. And finally, sixth, marginalized people always suffer most from systems that harm everyone. The poor used the most toxic cosmetics. Slaves had no choice about exposure. Children couldn't consent. The powerless bore the heaviest burdens of beauty culture, while the powerful at least had some agency and slightly safer options. These lessons aren't just historical curiosities. According to numerous parallels between ancient Egyptian beauty culture and modern practices analyzed throughout this night, we face similar dynamics today. We participate in systems that harm us while seeming normal or even beneficial. We struggle to recognize slow developing risks. We channel legitimate human needs into practices whose full costs we don't understand. We allow economic interests to drive cultural practices without adequate safety oversight. We unconsciously perpetuate systems that harm us because everyone around us does the same. Ancient Egyptians couldn't see what we see looking back at their culture. What will people 3,000 years from now see about our beauty culture that we can't see? What practices that seem normal, necessary, even beneficial today will future archaeologists identify as collective self-harm sustained by cultural forces we couldn't overcome? These are uncomfortable questions, but ancient Egyptian beauty culture teaches us that asking them is essential. Sweet dreams, dear listener. May you wake tomorrow with new eyes for the cultural systems shaping your life. May you recognize the ancient Egyptians not as primitive people doing foolish things, but as humans like yourself, making reasonable choices within their cultural framework, suffering consequences they couldn't fully understand. May their story inspire compassion for all people trapped in harmful systems, including ourselves. May you find the wisdom to question practices everyone accepts, the courage to choose health over social approval, and the insight to recognize collective traps before they consume your life as cosmetics consumed ancient Egyptian lives. Good night, and remember, the ancient Egyptians who poisoned themselves with lead-based coal weren't fundamentally different from us. They loved their children, pursued success, sought beauty, tried to do right, faced social pressures, made difficult choices, and suffered consequences they couldn't avoid. Their story is our story, separated by time but connected by shared humanity. Understanding them helps us understand ourselves. Learning from their mistakes might help us avoid repeating them. That is the final gift ancient Egypt offers us through the tragedy of its beauty culture. Thank you for spending this incredibly long night with me, exploring one of history's most beautiful and most tragic cultural practices. Thank you for meeting every person we encountered, for considering every angle we examined, for following this topic deeper than anyone probably should in a single sitting. The ancient Egyptians deserve this depth of attention, this thorough effort to understand not just what they did but why they did it, not just the surface beauty of their culture, but the complex reality beneath. Sleep well, dream of alabaster and ivory, of lotus blooms and frankincense, of kohl-lined eyes and copper mirrors, of a civilization that created timeless beauty while destroying itself with beautiful poisons. And wake tomorrow ready to live differently, to question deeply, to recognize the ancient in the modern, and to choose, when possible, health over appearance, truth over tradition, and wisdom over conformity. Sweet dreams. And may you wake with wisdom learned from those who paid in their lives for lessons we can now access through the gift of historical distance. Good night.